Chapter 1275. There was always someone better than you. Yun Tian's performance made Chen Hao realize that the top geniuses of the top academies didn't count for much. They only sounded a little awesome. The top examinees of the various great academies were the true geniuses. Even in the second-rate academies, third-rate academies, and even fourth-rate academies, there were many true geniuses. Yun Tian was the best proof. In the third round, Fatty Li Yuan and Yun Tian's battle was arranged before Chen Ritian and Ao Qian. After Fatty and Yun Tian entered the arena, they didn't say a word. The moment the restrictions on the arena disappeared, the two of them attacked at the same time. Yun Tian was determined to win. The energy around him surged like the sea. With a wave of his hand, space collapsed and time distorted. The strength he displayed was even more terrifying than when he faced Ling Feng and Xue Fian. Such a situation also made everyone understand that Yun Tian didn't use his full strength in the previous battle. That was indeed the case. Yun Tian challenged three monstrous geniuses at once. Even if he was confident in his own strength, he still had to treat it seriously, especially Fatty Li Yuan. First, Fatty had obtained heaven-defying results when he just entered the academy. He was a level higher than Xue Fian and Ling Feng. Moreover, this was because Fatty didn't understand the rules and lost a lot of foundation points. Yun Tian had no choice but to pay attention to it. Second, Fatty had revealed too many monstrous talents. He was proficient in the ancient martial art Taiji Fist and had comprehended a realm that only the Grand Mist Supremacy realm could comprehend. He was also proficient in painting and calligraphy. Yun Tian naturally knew what this meant. Third, Fatty's life force wasn't the youngest in the Daluo Golden Wonderland, but he was definitely the youngest to reach his level of strength. Therefore, no matter how one looked at it, Fatty Li Yuan was the most dangerous existence among Ling Feng and Xue Fian. He wasn't inferior to the Monkey King's descendant, Ao Qian. Boom! Rumble! Yun Tian's fists flickered incessantly, causing the void to tremble. Every single punch was domineering and peerless in might. What was even more shocking was that the strength of every single punch was capable of surpassing the restraints of the arena's barrier and devouring the spiritual energy in the surroundings. It was truly profound. It had to be said that this was the strongest opponent Chen Hao had ever encountered in the same realm. Chen Hao only took a few punches head-on before he changed his tactics. He displayed the ancient martial art Taiji Fist, using softness to overcome strength. He borrowed strength to counter strength and neutralized the opponent's ferocious attacks. Even so, the fat on Fatty's body was still trembling. His big butt shook violently from time to time as he used greater teleportation to dodge Yun Tian's fierce and sharp attacks. It couldn't be helped. Yun Tian, who had extremely powerful combat skills, was actually able to shatter space-time with his fist by relying on his tyrannical strength and condense a great world domain to suppress Chen Hao. Every time he attacked the trajectory of Chen Hao's Taiji Fist, Chen Hao felt extremely stifled. However, the scene that the onlooking cultivators saw was completely different from what Chen Hao felt. In 2 days, Yun Tian had already gone through 4 battles and fully displayed his strength. In everyone's opinion, it would only take him a few minutes to defeat Fatty Li Yuan. After all, Ling Feng and Xue Fian had already been defeated. Although Fatty was slightly stronger, Yun Tian was undoubtedly stronger. After all, this was the chief disciple who had dominated for more than 1,000 years. How could he be so easily shaken? However, 10 minutes had passed, and the state of the two's battle seemed to be no different from when it had just started. Fatty was still in a state of complete suppression, but he was still able to defend his final line of defense. Yun Tian was unable to break through. This situation shocked everyone, especially the teachers who knew Yun Tian's strength. They looked at Fatty with even more puzzled eyes. What kind of monster was this damn Fatty? He was clearly in a situation where he was being beaten, and he had been doing so for more than 10 minutes. How could he not be flustered? This was very inconceivable. After all, in a situation where one was suppressed, one had to rely on energy to resist. For more than 10 minutes, and under such ferocious attacks, not to mention anything else, just the consumption should be enough to make Fatty collapse. However, Fatty was still performing Taiji Fist, occasionally swinging his big butt. His essence, qi, and spirit did not seem to have decreased at all. On the contrary, Yun Tian's forehead was slightly sweaty. His face was flushed, and his breathing was heavy. How could this be? Countless people were puzzled. However, very quickly, some of the teachers present saw some clues and answered the doubts in everyone's hearts. At the same time, everyone looked at Fatty with eyes filled with envy and jealousy. What a powerful physical body, what a majestic blood qi. This damn Fatty, looks like we've underestimated him. He's practically relying entirely on the strength of his fleshly body to resist. His true essence and divine sense are merely a decoy to recover his body. This little Fatty is truly unfathomable. If this continues, even Yun Tian will be ground to death by him. The teachers of the large pavilion frowned and discussed, their worried expressions overflowing. I'm sure that Brother Fatty will win. Back then, wasn't one Ishui worn down by Brother Fatty until he couldn't resist? Ao Qian said. Motherfucker, all the fat on Fatty's body is actually used to store energy. Ling Feng was dumbfounded. He had already experienced Yun Tian's strength. Up until now, he had to admit that the Fatty's strength was indeed unfathomable. The Fatty's body created by the Great Change art was completely a shell for him to hide his true strength. He couldn't help but say, Big brother, I'm really curious what the Fatty looks like. What does he look like? Cough, cough, what I mean is, what kind of person or monster is Fatty? His physical strength, blood qi, and endurance are so strong, so abnormal. As long as the opponent's strength is not absolutely suppressed, it's impossible to win against him. Ling Feng hurriedly added. The fact that he and Fatty both used the Great Change art was their secret. Even Ao Qian, Xuefian, and the rest could not tell them. Yun Tian, who was in the middle of the battle, was fine at the beginning. However, as time passed, he became anxious. Whether it's strength, speed, or the law of divine sense, I'm stronger than him. If I'm tortured to death by him, where will my face go? No, I can't lose to him. Boom. With a loud explosion, Yun Tian suddenly released a powerful attack, causing the meatball-like Fatty to retreat. At the same time, his body moved horizontally, making the first retreat since the start of the battle. After stabilizing his body, Yun Tian suddenly opened his arms and roared into the sky. The essence, qi, and spirit of his body instantly gushed out. Damn Fatty, I've underestimated you. However, if you want to torture me to death, don't even think about it. Today, I'll allow you and all the Golden Immortals at the Golden Immortal Realm to witness my strongest attack. As Yun Tian spoke for the first time, an extremely powerful aura was released from his body along with the eruption of his essence, qi, and spirit. It went from weak to strong, rising rapidly. His gaze was like an unsheathed sword, sweeping across the surrounding cultivators. It was not only in the direction of Ao Qian and the rest, but also where Chen Ritian was. Yun Tian's gaze was filled with battle intent and disdain. Chapter 1276. A terrifying pressure swept out, causing the crowd to fall silent. Only the fluctuations of the heavens and the earth could be heard as the wind howled and howled. The Fatty, who seemed to be forced to deal with it, did not have much of a change in his expression in the face of Yun Tian's soaring aura and rolling pressure. He only narrowed his eyes and his pupils constricted, emitting an even sharper light. He said calmly and aggressively, Your strongest attack? It's indeed a very strong aura, but it's not up to you to decide whether I can wear you down. Bring it on. Grandpa Fatty wants to see how strong your strongest attack is. As the Fatty spoke, waves of powerful fluctuations abruptly gushed out from his body. Boundless blood qi actually faintly condensed into blood-red phantoms around him, making the Fatty look like a person suffused with blood-red light. At the same time, a blood-red light shot out from the Fatty's forehead in all directions. An intense slaughter will bloomed. Clearly, the Fatty did not dare to be careless about Yun Tian's so-called strongest attack. He used the slaughter will that he had revealed before, which was seen by everyone as an inheritance. Moreover, it was a slaughter will that had given birth to a trace of intelligence. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. Because of the two people's soaring auras, the arena instantly became abnormally violent. Just the collision of their auras caused the heavens and the earth to tremble. Explosions occurred one after another. The dense spiritual chi of the heavens and the earth and Tao laws in the air showed signs of collapsing, being annihilated, and then reforming. Then come golden sun illumination. Boom. In the air above the arena, a cold light shot out from Yun Tian's eyes. He suddenly pushed out a palm. In an instant, a huge palm that bloomed with golden light shot out violently from his palm. The golden light palm was the lead, and the golden light pillar was the bridge. It was as if Yun Tian's arm was endlessly extending. It carried an unparalleled profundity, power, and pressure as it blasted towards the fatty. There was no strongest absolute art in the world. The same absolute art would have different effects when practiced by different people. It was hard to judge the absolute nature of the absolute art. However, to an individual, the strongest absolute art was the one that suited him or herself, the absolute art that comprehended the Tao. The golden sun illuminating world palm was Yun Tianwu's ultimate technique. This technique condensed his entire life's cultivation and strength, combined his comprehension of the laws of the great Tao with his own physical condition, fusing them into one. Without a doubt, this was his strongest technique. Golden sun illuminating the world? The fatty's pupils shrank and a trace of seriousness appeared between his brows. Immediately after, he exhaled and said, "Mighty King Kong Palm. Qi." The fatty blasted out a palm. The essence, qi, spirit, zhen yuan, and physical strength of his body immediately surged out along his 8 extraordinary meridians like a river bursting through a dam. A golden palm shadow, the size of Chen Hao's palm, shot out the moment Chen Hao's arm was fully extended. It was also a golden palm, but it did not expand at all. It also did not have the majestic aura created by Yun Tian's golden sun illuminating the world. It was also not connected to Yun Tian's body and did not extend out of his body to control and supply energy at any time. However, the fatty's small golden palm was condensed to the extreme. Its speed was astonishing, and it carried an unimaginable penetrative power. When it collided with Yun Tian's palm, it actually pierced through Yun Tian's huge palm like a hot knife through butter. Bang! A low collision sound came from Yun Tian's chest at the speed of light and sparks, rippling through the entire arena. The fatty's palm penetrated too quickly. It was so fast that Yun Tian, who was using his divine sense to control the golden sun illuminating the world, could not react in time at all. It had already hit his chest. Poof! Then, Yun Tian's expression changed greatly. His chest suddenly rose and fell violently. At the same time, he uncontrollably spat out a mouthful of essence blood. Wang wang wang. In an instant, extremely profound runes condensed around Yun Tian's body one after another. His expression became even more terrifying, and the space between his eyebrows bloomed like a scorching sun. His eyes were filled with shock as he looked at the fatty, and at the same time, they became even crazier. At this moment, everyone present was stunned. The scene of the battle between the two was indescribably strange. Many cultivators did not even know what was going on. They only knew that Fatty Li Yuan and Yun Tian's battle had reached a critical moment. They also saw Fatty Li successfully penetrate Yun Tian's attack with his seemingly condensed but not very powerful palm and hit Yun Tian's chest. However, other than a crazed expression and a little pain, Yun Tian's body did not show any violent reaction. At the same time, although the golden sun illuminating the world that Yun Tian had condensed was pierced through by Chen Hao's palm, it did not panic at all and maintained its attack. Ruthless! At this moment, Fatty Li Yuan's voice sounded from the arena. Rumble! Soon after, the fatty's figure was engulfed by the terrifying golden palm energy in front of countless shocked gazes. Arrows of blood turned into a bloody mist, appearing exceptionally dazzling under the golden energy light. At the same time, the fatty's ear-piercing, pig-like screams also caused the surrounding onlookers to be horrified. Ao Guang, Ling Feng, Xue Fian, Su Tao, In Su Su, and the other members of the Carnage battle team held their breaths and clenched their fists. Yun Tian originally thought that the tanky fatty would be able to grind his opponent to death in this match. Unfortunately, Yun Tian's battle experience was very rich. He didn't give Chen Hao the chance to grind him to death at all. Yun Tian decisively used his strongest attack to end the battle quickly. Not to mention Ling Feng and Xue Fian, even the Monkey King's descendant, Ao Guang, who was known for his tyrannical strength, felt threatened by the power of the golden sun illuminating world palm. If it were him, Ao Guang also did not think that he would be able to receive this move. "Hold on, fatty bro." Ao Guang gnashed his teeth and said, "Fatty bro." Su Tao and the rest could only murmur, "What a terrible scream." When Xue Fian heard the fatty's shrill scream, she was no longer nervous. The battle was over, and the fatty's defeat was already decided. The teacher was in control of the arena, so the fatty's life was not in danger. "Fatty, why are you still holding on? It's fine if you lost. Just come again next time. Hurry up and admit defeat." Ling Feng said. "Fuck, admit defeat my ass. At most, Fatty Bro will be severely injured. It's not like he will lose his combat ability. There's still hope until the last moment." Ao Guang glared at Ling Feng and retorted, "Hope my ass. I've already lost. Fian has also lost. Fatty is only slightly stronger." Ling Feng said. Previously, he still hoped that the fatty could win. Now that he saw that the fatty had lost all hope, he accepted it as a matter of course. After all, he was a show-off, and he did not want to be below the fatty. Add 1, still 02. Chapter 1277. Yun Tian Dao Enlightenment's golden sun illumination finally ran out of energy, the dazzling golden light disappeared, the dust settled, and at the core of the ripple, the fatty's pig-like howl also disappeared. At this moment, everyone's gaze was attracted to the figure at the core of the ripple. All of them gasped as their eyes widened in shock. They simply could not believe what they saw, a bloody figure. A badly mutilated figure. Other than the fat face that was still intact, allowing everyone to know that he was Fatty Li Yuan, that badly mutilated figure that was so slim that it was almost the same as a normal person, there was no trace of the fatty at all. Such a scene, everyone understood that the terrifying explosion must have shaved off the fatty's flesh. Such a scene caused everyone's hair to stand on end, and at the same time, they were even more shocked. Dense Dao Mark aura surrounded the fatty's badly mutilated body, preventing his body from recovering and healing. Blood was still flowing out, and the wounds on his body were still increasing, but the slaughter intent between the fatty's eyebrows became even more intense. His entire essence, energy, and vitality seemed to have a final radiance. Not only did it not weaken, it actually began to soar again. How is this possible? Chi. At this moment, not many people noticed that the victor in everyone's heart, Yun Tian, had a crazed expression ever since the fatty's palm landed on his chest. The energy fluctuation around his body was intense. It was obvious that he was suppressing the palm force that the fatty poured into his body. At this moment, he, who thought that victory was imminent, looked at the fatty with a shocked expression, and even fear. Comparing ruthlessness? The person who can compete with me, Fatty Yi, in terms of ruthlessness has yet to be born. Do you still need me, Fatty Yi, to make a move? What no one expected was that the fatty suddenly spoke. This puzzled everyone. After all, no matter how they looked at it, the fatty was in a worse state. It gave them the feeling that he would not be able to last much longer. You want me to admit defeat? Dream on. You are in a worse state than me now. Although I can't break your Dao mark, I can still suppress it. What about you? Humph, my Dao comprehending ultimate skill, golden sun illuminates the world, is not something you can break. How long can you last? Yun Tian said disdainfully. He originally thought that his attack would directly cause the fatty to lose his ability to fight, and at that time, his mind would naturally lose control of his palm. In that case, he could easily dissolve the fatty's palm force Dao mark in his body. But he didn't expect that even after the fatty's flesh was shaved off, his mind was still controlling his palm force. This shocked him, but he didn't think that the fatty's situation was better than his. I won't be able to hold on for too long, just a few minutes at most. Ha! In a matter of minutes, you have the nerve to ask me to admit defeat? What a joke. If I had known earlier, I would have used less power to suppress your Dao marks and you would have already lost. And you want me to admit defeat? The one who should admit defeat is you. The conversation between the two made all the cultivators aware of their current situation. It was obvious that they had entered a stalemate. Everyone looked at Fatty, then looked at Yuntian. For a moment, everyone fell silent. In the entire plaza, there was only the sound of the Fatty and Yuntian resisting each other's Dao marks, as well as the faint sound of energy circulation. Whose energy could last until the end? Sigh. Fatty suddenly shook his head and sighed, then said, "Since you don't admit defeat, then don't blame me for being impolite. Teachers, you have to monitor well. If someone dies, it has nothing to do with me. Yuntian, Fatty Knight, I seriously advise you to admit defeat." What? Everyone was stunned by the Fatty's words. Dream on. What a joke. Now, what power do you have to take my life? All right, this is your choice, Buzz. Just as the Fatty finished speaking, his glabella suddenly shook. Wait. Right at this moment, the referee on the stage suddenly shouted. At the same time, his glabella also released a beam of light that came between the Fatty and Yuntian. Li Yuan, you have the ability to detonate your Dao marks? The referee went straight to the point. Of course. Teacher, if you delay my time like this, you know that I won't be able to hold on for long. Don't worry. The referee's expression didn't change at all. He suddenly opened his hand and sucked at Yuntian. In an instant, endless mysterious runes appeared out of nowhere. The next moment, Yuntian's chest made a buzz, sound, and a golden palm flew out. It could be seen at a glance that it was the mighty Vajra palm that the Fatty had used before. Phew! Yuntian instantly let out a long sigh of relief. His twisted and crazy expression immediately relaxed a lot. The pain disappeared, but he was still imprisoned and couldn't move. Detonation successful. You win, Yuntian loses. Old man used Yuntian's strength to suppress and protect, so it's barely fair. Begin. The Fatty was slightly stunned, then he shook his head and accepted the referee's method. His glabella shook again, and a beam of light cut through the void. Boom. Rumble. In an instant, the golden palm that was moved out of Yuntian's body released an incomparably resplendent light. It was as if a scorching sun had exploded. Golden light shot out in all directions, and a loud sound shook the heavens. The terrifying explosion wave swept through the heavens and earth. It wasn't inferior to when Yuntian had used his enlightenment technique to bombard the Fatty. Impossible? How is this possible? Yuntian's eyes widened in shock and fear. He was certain that if the Fatty's Dao mark had detonated in his body, he would definitely have turned into dust. The referee wouldn't have been able to save him in time. Fortunately, the Fatty didn't have the intention to take his name. To be precise, the Fatty spared his life. The cultivators around the stage all sucked in a breath of cold air. Their eyes were filled with horror as they looked at the Fatty who was covered in blood. What kind of abnormal existence was this? Brother Fatty is here. Brother Fatty is mighty. On the third day, early in the morning when the Fatty, Ao Guang, and the rest arrived, it caused a commotion in the crowd. The Fatty had defeated the previous ducks, Yuntian, yesterday. His fame and reputation had become even greater. Later on, Ao Guang and Chen Ritian had a fierce battle, and Ao Guang was defeated. Li Yuan. So cute, so powerful, I still prefer Ling Feng. He's handsome and strong, pleasing to the eye. I like Monkey King Ao Guang. If I were to follow him, who would dare to bully me in this world? All right, Chen Ritian is the most handsome, the strongest. It's just that he's too cold, making people unable to get close to him. However, this kind of person, if you could conquer his heart, you would definitely become the happiest woman in the world. Stop dreaming. I'm afraid that only the monstrous genius young ladies from the top academies and the first academy would be able to catch Chen Ritian's eyes. That's right. Chen Ritian doesn't have any emotional fluctuations at all. When he was fighting Ao Guang yesterday, it was really too terrifying. He was even more violent than the Monkey King's descendant. Using violence to curb violence, he's really too strong. There's still a good show to watch today. According to the people from Great Transformation Pavilion, Chen Ritian will challenge the fatty, Ling Feng, and Xue Fian today. Yesterday, Great Transformation Pavilions and Trio symbolically challenged him so that they would have the right to challenge him today. The crowd was buzzing with discussion. This was also the biggest highlight of the day. I have something on today, so I won't make up for it. I'll just do it today. Chapter 1278. I challenge Ling Feng, Xue Fian, and Li Yuan. Just as everyone expected, Chen Ritian's cold voice sounded the moment the registration started. Although this kind of battle where a high-ranking person challenged a low-ranking person was meaningless, the Great Transformation Pavilion, which had lost all face, treated this as their only chance to regain some face. However, Yun Tian's defeat yesterday caused the mood of the Great Transformation Pavilion's pavilion master and the others to become a little heavy and perturbed. However, there was no turning back for an arrow that had been shot. Although the arrangement yesterday was not made clear, it had already been made known to everyone. Chen Ritian was the same as Yun Tian and would also challenge Li Yuan, Ao Guang and Xue Fian. How could Chen Ritian, who had obtained 3 challenges today, give up? If that happened, everyone would think that the Great Transformation Pavilion thought that Chen Ritian wasn't as good as Fatty. Therefore, regardless of victory or defeat, he had to fight. In the first round, Chen Ritian defeated Ling Feng with his ferocious and fierce attacks. In the second round, Chen Ritian also defeated Xue Fian. However, this time, Xue Fian didn't reveal her true identity, which confused everyone. After all, Chen Ritian didn't have the suppression of Yun Tian's realm, so it wouldn't be a problem for Xue Fian to reveal her true identity. Moreover, even if Chen Ritian had the suppression of his realm, who didn't know how strong Chen Ritian was? No one could stop him from revealing his true identity from the start. However, although these 2 battles were exciting, the outcome was within everyone's expectations. There wasn't much to look forward to. What everyone was looking forward to was the battle between Fatty Li Yuan and Chen Ritian. If Fatty Li Yuan was able to defeat Yun Tian, a veteran first seat, then his chances of defeating Heavenly Empress Chen Ri would be at least on par with her. No one could be sure who would win or lose. They would only know after the battle. The last battle of the day. The challenger is Chen Ritian from the Great Transformation Pavilion. The challenger is Li Yuan from the Real Martial Pavilion. Please come on stage. Whoosh. Chen Ritian. Victory. Chen Ritian. Victory. Brother Fatty will win. Brother Fatty will win. In an instant, all the cultivators in the square cheered for their idol. What Chen Hao did not expect was that his popularity was on par with Chen Hao's. Let alone Chen Hao, even the teachers, Ao Guang, Ling Feng, Xue Fian, and the others didn't think of this. After all, Chen Ritian, who had incredible results, was extremely handsome and was even able to defeat the Monkey King's descendant with violence, was more suitable to be an idol than the fatty. In the crowd, Yun Tian, who could be said to have been spared by the fatty yesterday, had a gaze as calm as water. He stared at the fatty's fat buttocks flying towards the stage without any ripples in his eyes. It was impossible to tell if he was happy, angry, sad, or happy, but one could be sure that there was no trace of hatred in his eyes. I hope that you'll be the first seat. Yun Tian stared at the fatty and thought to himself. In order to protect the title of the first seat of the Dehua court, he had wasted 1,000 years and confined himself in the Daluo Golden Wonderland. 1,000 years might not be much in the long life of a cultivator, but to a true monstrous genius who was about to step onto the path of the immortal emperor, it was extremely precious. How big was the loss of such a sacrifice? It was very, very big. However, with the appearance of Chen Ritian, the head of the Dehua court, his teacher, he had to give up his final glory. He was very unwilling. Stepping into Hongmeng with the glory of being the first seat was what he wanted. It was also the best way to gather providence. However, his teacher did not allow him to challenge Chen Ritian. After dominating for 1,000 years, he had to give up just like that. Who would be willing to do that? However, he could only obey. Now, deep in his heart, he did not hesitate to throw away his identity as a disciple of the Dehua court. He hoped to use his strength to defeat the fatty Li Yuan fair and square to obtain the title of first seat. Only then would he be convinced. Whoosh, 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 streams of light converged from all directions toward the square where the Daluo Golden Wonderland was located. The referee intentionally placed the battle between the fatty Li Yuan and Chen Ritian as the last match of the day. This caused many cultivators from the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm and the teachers who were watching the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm competition to rush over. Although this was only the battle between the top in the Daluo Golden Wonderland, there was no doubt that this was the most anticipated battle in this year's preliminary ranking challenge. It was even more anticipated than the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm's Murong Qianhua, Xinyuan Qin, and Tang Hu. This was because of the heaven-defying results of Chen Ritian and the equally heaven-defying fatty Li Yuan. Murong Qianhua, Xinyuan Qin, and Tang Hu also appeared in the spectator area at the same time. They stood with their hands behind their backs and looked coldly at the arena. They did not seem to care much about the battle between the fatty and Chen Ritian. However, since they had come, how could they not care? Hiss, hiss, hiss. In the arena, the fatty squinted his eyes. He had a harmless smile on his face as he stared at the cold-looking Chen Ritian who was filled with murderous intent. "You're very strong." To everyone's surprise, the cold and silent Chen Ritian could not help but speak first. Moreover, he was praising the other party. "You're very strong too," the fatty said with a smile. "However, no matter how strong you are, today, I hope to have a fair, all-out, and unreserved battle. No matter if I win or lose." Chen Ritian's eyes shone brightly as he looked straight at Chen Hao. "No problem. It's absolutely fair, all out, and unreserved. Go all out. If you can win against me, you're capable." The fatty squinted his eyes and said straightforwardly. Although the spectating cultivators felt that the conversation between the two was a little strange, they did not take it seriously. They only thought that Chen Ritian and the fatty could feel each other's strength. Perhaps they were a little sympathetic towards each other, which was why they had such a conversation. However, they did not know that the conversation between the two actually had a hidden meaning. Chen Ritian was the eighth life that was derived from Chen Hao's massacre will. Like the other lives, he had his own consciousness and thoughts. Even though Chen Hao had connected the memories and thoughts of his original body and the eighth life for convenience, he could not avoid the selfish thoughts that came with having his own consciousness. Chen Ritian's words were actually a chance for a fair battle. In other words, he did not want Chen Hao to use his original body's consciousness to suppress and order him around. Chen Hao's reply was naturally to agree to his request. As the original body, how could the fatty allow his clone to provoke him? No matter what, he had to absolutely suppress him. Buzz. Buzz. The moment the imprisonment runes on the arena disappeared, the fatty's glabella shook. He immediately held the Overlord's spear horizontally in his hand. At the same time, what made the crowd exclaim in shock and excitement was that the glabella of the fatty emitted an extremely bright blood-red glow. "Massacre will. Are you sure? Master Fatty will naturally treat you the same way you treat my brothers and sisters. It's just the massacre will. Haven't you heard that it's also one of Master Fatty's strongest unique skills? I also heard that your massacre will has already gained sentience. If you use it too much, you won't even know how you died. It's just gaining sentience. As long as Master Fatty is willing, I can destroy it with a thought. Cut the crap. Take this." Buzz. The fatty became one with his spear and suddenly attacked. Chapter 1279. Bush. The spear and man crossed the void and turned into a ball of blood-red light, rushing toward Chen Ritian at an astonishing speed. Strong attack. The sudden change happened in the blink of an eye. None of the cultivators in the Daluo Golden Wonderland could react in time. Even the cold-blooded Chen Ritian only reacted when Chen Hao's spear was about to reach him. Fast. That was the only word that could describe Fatty's sharp and stunning spear. Thinking about it in Fatty's shoes, many cultivators broke out in cold sweat. If they were in Fatty's shoes, they would definitely be stabbed through the heart by Fatty's spear. Is this Fatty's true strength? Countless people were shocked. However, after a moment, what shocked them even more was whoosh. Chen Ritian, who could not react in time, retreated as fast as lightning when Fatty, who had become one with the spear, was about to reach him. At the same time, his hands shone with endless runes and he clapped his palms together. Buzz. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The entire square, other than the sound of people sucking in cold breaths, was terrifyingly silent. Everyone was shocked. Chen Ritian, who had retreated and clapped his palms together, was able to clamp Fatty's overlord spear between his palms in an instant. Those incomparably resplendent and mysterious runes had actually condensed in an instant. What kind of terrifying ability was this? If that was all, it would have been fine. However, he actually managed to stop Fatty's stunning spear. Under the collision of the divine powers, there was no scene of violent energy wreaking havoc. There was only the collision of the two Tao runes. Celestial light shone brightly, changing rapidly. They are competing in the comprehension of the Tao laws and the massacre will. An expert in the crowd said, "They are so strong." As the Fatty's overlord spear swallowed and spat, it was filled with endless mysterious Tao laws. Chen Ritian used both of his palms as support and runes appeared out of thin air. Both of their eyebrows faced each other, and their killing intent actually condensed into a substantial light that collided with each other. For a moment, not to mention the Daluo Golden Immortals, even the experts and teachers present, including the pavilion master of the true immortal king realm, couldn't tell who had the upper hand between the two. These are the two strongest people in our academy's Daluo Golden Wonderland. However, this is only temporary. Whether or not they will be the strongest in the future is uncertain. Oh? You mean the descendant of the Monkey King, Ao Guang, and her disciple, Xuefian? That's right. Other than the two of them, Little Wind King Ling Feng can't be underestimated either. What do you think? Not bad, right? If it was 100 years ago, it would naturally be very good, or rather, very strong. But now, old Cheng, wait until you see the top 100 of our Tanglong Academy. You'll know. If nothing unexpected happens, we'll break our record of 4 consecutive victories. Dream on. He had gotten 3 consecutive victories out of sheer luck, and he wanted to get 4 consecutive victories? You're dreaming, old man. There's no point in talking too much. We'll see the results in half a year. In the air, Cheng Wanxiang, the dean of the University of Dehua, and Li Wuxiang, the dean of the Tanglong Academy, were arguing with each other. It was an indisputable fact that a great era had come. The Tanglong Academy, which was also a first-class academy, was also very lucky. This year, they had recruited several incredible geniuses, which were not inferior to the University of Dehua at all. Because of this, they were able to remain calm in the face of Fatty Li Yuan and Chen Ritian. Both of their slaughter wills are very strong, but why do they give me a feeling that they're of the same origin? Li Wuxiang's mind was immersed in the arena. After carefully sensing the battle for a while, he suddenly frowned and said, "But you have the same feeling too? Then it seems that my feeling was right. How strange." Cheng Wanxiang was quite surprised. This was because when he carefully sensed, he also noticed that the slaughter wills of Li Yuan and Chen Ritian were very similar. There were many similarities, as if they were of the same origin. This was very inconceivable. After all, the birth of any will was formed by the cultivator's own experiences, feelings, emotions, temperament, outlook on life, worldview, Taoism, and many other factors. It must have its own unique aura. It was very difficult for different people to have similar auras. This was like the same kind of martial arts practiced by different people. When they displayed it, they would have their own brand. However, the slaughter wills of Li Yuan and Chen Ritian were shockingly similar, as if they were of the same origin. It's really strange. It seems that the experiences, temperament, emotions, and other aspects of these two people must have a lot in common. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so similar, maybe? Cheng Wanxiang replied, but the strangeness in his heart did not diminish at all. Li Wuxiang was not clear about Fatty Li Yuan's and Chen Ritian's personalities. Through his understanding of them during this period of time, he was more or less clear. The two of them could be said to be completely unrelated. At least on the surface, their personalities and temperaments were absolutely incompatible. How could they give birth to such similar killing intent auras? Unless one of them was hiding their true character. Although both of them knew about the 9 lives secret skill of the Star River King, let alone them, even the pavilion master of the true martial pavilion, Mo Shilin, who had cultivated half of the 9 lives secret skill, could not sense it at all, let alone others. There was another point. The 9 lives secret skill inheritance left by the Star River King was extremely rare in the great world of Xiandi. Therefore, the two of them did not even think about the 9 lives secret skill. Besides, even if there was a 9 lives secret skill, no one would be so bored as to do it with 2 people. Boom. Rumble. The two of them competed with their slaughter wills and Dao Law runes for a full 3 minutes. When the outcome could not be determined, Chen Ritian took the lead and pushed his palms forward, detonating the energy around his body and officially starting the battle. No one noticed the smug look in the depths of the fatty's eyes. It seemed that they were evenly matched, and in fact, they were evenly matched. However, for Chen Hao and Chen Ritian, the winner of the slaughter wills and Dao Law runes had already been determined in their hearts, especially in the slaughter wills. One was the 8th life derived from the slaughter wills, while the other was the slaughter wills that had been completely hollowed out by the 8th life. In such a short period of time, it was clear who would win and who would lose. Bang, bang, bang. In the blink of an eye, the two figures intertwined with each other in close combat. They were as fast as lightning, and every time they exchanged a blow, violent energy would surge out from their bodies, condensing into mysterious and complicated runes at the point of collision. Although the battle scene did not explode with powerful energy, it still left everyone dumbfounded. They could not help but admire the abnormality of the two. The divine ability laws were simply at their fingertips. Moreover, they were all complicated and mysterious. How many people could do that? Supplement. I still owe you an update. Chapter 1280. As time passed, the dean of Tanglong Academy, Li Wuxiang, could not help but frown. It was obvious that Fatty Li Yuan and Chen Ritian's strength were getting stronger and stronger. His previous underestimation of them had quietly turned into seriousness. Boom, 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 boom. A terrifying energy wave finally exploded from the arena, indicating that the battle between the two had entered its final stage. Under the influence of the will of slaughter, the two of them seemed to have been soaked in blood as they emitted blood-red rays of light. It was too much for the eyes to take in. Even the majority of the Grandmist realm experts present couldn't help but admit their inferiority. In a first-rate academy, it was not strange for monsters like Fatty Li Yuan and Chen Ritian to have the strength to defeat some of the Grandmist Supremacy Realm disciples. However, to have the strength to surpass most of the Grandmist Supremacy Realm disciples was too heaven-defying. After all, no matter what, they were still geniuses from first-rate academies. But now, the absolute energy waves that Chen Ritian and Li Yuan shot out were completely beyond everyone's imagination. Brother Fatty is awesome. Too awesome. I've long known that Brother Fatty is very strong, but I didn't expect him to be so strong. But damn, Chen Ritian is really strong. He's not at a disadvantage at all. Damn it, I didn't expect Fatty to have hidden so much. Ling Feng also said. He was certain that he could not shake Fatty even if he exposed his identity. Xue Fian, who was expressionless and without any emotion, continued to stare at the Fatty and Chen Ritian who were crazily attacking each other in the ring. She did not say anything, but in her heart, it became clearer that the Fatty was most likely the fated person that her master had mentioned. Only someone who was definitely stronger than her could be her fated one. Otherwise, why would her master take a fancy to him? Originally, Ao Guang and Ling Feng were both possibilities. Because both of them had hidden their true strength, Xue Fian could not determine who was the strongest. However, after Ao Guang revealed his identity as the descendant of the Monkey King, Xue Fian ruled him out. The monkey tribe could not be her fated one. As for Ling Feng, although Xue Fian was a little confused by the title of Young Wind King, after interacting with him for a while, Especially after seeing Fatty's true strength, she was more certain of Fatty's identity. Rumble. A terrifying explosion erupted between the two of them. Chen Hao and Chen Ritian retreated at the same time. The moment Chen Ritian stabilized his body, a bright light flashed between his eyebrows. For the first time, he drew his weapon, a sword. Pseudo-immortal artifact? The moment he saw the treasured sword, Chen Hao, who was holding the Overlord's spear horizontally, suddenly twisted his body and stopped the new wave of attacks. "That's right," Chen Ritian said proudly. His expression remained cold and emotionless. It seemed that he did not feel anything about using a pseudo-immortal artifact against Chen Hao. It can't be. Fuck, even a pseudo-immortal artifact has appeared. This is not fair. That's right. Although our Daluo Jinxian can't unleash the true power of a pseudo-immortal artifact, it's hard to say for a monster like Chen Ritian. Using a magical artifact to suppress him is not fair to me. In an instant, many of Fatty's supporters voiced out their dissatisfaction. Fuck, you're so arrogant. Why didn't I know about it? Fatty said with a pained expression. It's a gift from the cabinet master when I became his disciple. I know that you want to tie with me, but I want to win. Don't talk to me about fairness. Magical artifact resources are also a form of strength. You know this. Fuck. Are you trying to use my control to order me around? If you do that, I'll have to listen to you. However, I'll never submit to you. Chen Ritian took the lead and said. He had inherited Chen Hao's memories and wisdom. After gaining independent thinking, he was confident that he wouldn't be inferior to his original self. However, the current battle seemed to be evenly matched, but he knew that this was because his original self, Chen Hao, had no intention of winning. Because Chen Hao wanted a tie. The truth was that Chen Hao couldn't lose. Even if he was facing his own 8th anima, he couldn't lose. This was related to the most mysterious fate in the world and the momentum of victory that had been accumulated over many years. He couldn't give up. However, Chen Hao also didn't want his 8th anima, Chen Ritian, to lose. After all, he still hoped that his 8th anima, Chen Ritian, and his original self, Li Yuan, would become famous in the world so that his parents and his master, Han Mei, would know about him. As long as these two names appeared at the same time, his parents and his master would be 100% sure that it was him. It wasn't a coincidence of names. You're rebelling. Fine, today I'll make you obedient. It's just a pseudo-immortal weapon. I've even had a genuine immortal weapon before. Chen Hao said angrily. However, after saying this, Chen Hao frowned slightly. He thought of the old god who had disappeared after his nirvana. He couldn't help but think of the galaxy tunnel in the vast thousand worlds that contained the old god's aura. He also thought of the short but unforgettable experience in the vast thousand worlds. He thought of the woman, Nguyen Tan Lan, who was in the 3rd anima and then the original self after awakening. However, she didn't say a word from the beginning to the end. She had done everything that should have been done. He also thought of the 9 great evildoers he had befriended. I'm looking forward to it. Come on. Chen Ritian stabbed his sword violently, interrupting Chen Hao's inadvertent thoughts. Then come on. Boom. Chi. The corners of the fat man's mouth curled up slightly, revealing a devilish smile. If it was his original self, who knew how many girls would be charmed by him? Unfortunately, on his fat face, it only gave people the feeling of a confident expert smile. Immediately, a fierce light surged in his eyes. He stomped his feet and swung his big buttocks wildly. His body shot out explosively. At the same time, the Overlord's spear shook and turned into a sky full of sharp blood-colored spear radiance, heading towards Chen Ritian. Chen Ritian's pupils suddenly shrank. His essence, chi, spirit, true essence, physical strength, and killing intent suddenly poured into the pseudo-immortal weapon sword. In an instant, the sky full of blood-colored radiance gathered and the space shook. A majestic and terrifying pressure seemed to cut through the void, condensing into a heavenly sword that could intimidate heaven and earth and suppress all directions. Strong. It was definitely stronger than everyone, including Chen Hao. Boom, boom, boom. The moment the heavenly sword was formed, the endless spear radiance from the fat man was annihilated under the pressure of the heavenly sword. An unprecedented pressure suddenly enveloped Chen Hao, causing Chen Hao's expression to change. How can it be so strong? Boom. In just an instant, Chen Hao put away the contempt that came from the depths of his heart. He knew that this arrogant eighth anima was probably going to force him to use all his strength today. He felt a little funny, a little angry, a little sad, a little depressed, but at the same time, a little excited. It had been a long time since someone made him fight to his heart's content. Although it was his eighth anima that forced him to this point, his bones were filled with a strong desire to fight. He was still excited. Roar! Boom! The god of slaughter Chen Hao's roar finally erupted. The long-awaited, wholehearted, unparalleled battle intent finally erupted from Chen Hao's body. Chapter 1281. The majestic blood qi was as deep as the sea. The condensed, pure, and vigorous essence, qi, and spirit condensed into a substantial beam of light that shot up into the sky as if it had penetrated the 9 heavens and 10 lands. His physical strength, true core strength, soul strength, and the law of divine ability gushed out along with Chen Hao's long-awaited roar. It was like a rainbow piercing through the sun, intimidating the world. His long hair fluttered in the wind, his fierce eyes, his terrifying pressure, his tyrannical battle intent, and the overlord's spear in his hand formed a scene that made everyone gasp in shock. Tyrannical? No one had expected that when Fatty Li Yuan really erupted, he would produce such a terrifying and shocking momentum. Oh my god, he's too strong. He's simply an invincible existence. This aura makes me wonder if I'm just an ant in front of him. His momentum is monstrous and unstoppable. What a terrifying blood qi, what a powerful essence, qi and spirit. This is momentum, the general momentum of invincibility. Only the belief of invincibility can produce the momentum of a king. The entire square fell into absolute silence after Chen Hao's outburst. After a moment, voices filled with shock and disbelief erupted from various parts of the crowd. Some of them were experts among the disciples of the academy, some of them were teachers present, but no matter who it was, they could not hide the shock in their hearts. It was also at this moment that Chen Hao struck with his overlord spear. The blood-red spear radiance swept out violently and collided with the heaven sword that Chen Ritian had released with the pseudo-immortal artifact. Rumble! A terrifying fluctuation spread out from the point of collision between the spear radiance and the sword radiance. The void collapsed and the law of Tao was shattered. However, Chen Hao and Chen Ritian, who had a solemn expression, ignored such a terrifying fluctuation and attacked one after another. Clang, 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 clang. Shortly after, the overlord spear and the pseudo-immortal artifact sword came into close contact with each other, erupting into bright sparks. Everyone was shocked to find that Fatty Li Yuan was not at a disadvantage in the face of Chen Ritian, who had activated the pseudo-immortal artifact sword and was extremely powerful. Instead, he completely suppressed Chen Ritian in terms of momentum. This also allowed everyone to confirm that Fatty Li Yuan's true strength was more terrifying than Chen Ritian's. Even if Chen Ritian won this match, it would not change everyone's opinion because when Chen Ritian chose to use the pseudo-immortal artifact, it was equivalent to him admitting that he was not stronger than Fatty Li Yuan. Otherwise, he would not use the pseudo-immortal artifact to fight. This was something that all cultivators knew, and Chen Ritian had no reason not to understand it. Of the pseudo-immortal artifact sword? A sneer appeared at the corner of Fatty Li's mouth as he spoke while fighting. However, before he could finish his sentence, Fatty Li's eyes suddenly focused. He suddenly realized that the sword radiance emitted by Chen Ritian did not completely disappear after colliding with his spear radiance. Instead, it turned into a mysterious rune light that scattered to the left, right, top, bottom, and back of Chen Hao, faintly forming an encirclement with Chen Ritian in front of him. Moreover, as the number of attacks increased, the number of mysterious runes condensed from the sword radiance increased and became more and more complete. I can't defeat you in terms of true strength, but I won't lose to you either. With the divine ability contained in the pseudo-immortal artifact, do you think you can stop my victory? You have the belief of being invincible, so do I. Be careful, every move I make now is the foundation for the final kill. If you can break it, I'll admit defeat. Chen Ritian said coldly, expressionless. For the first time, Chen Hao felt a chill in his heart. At the same time, it was also because of Chen Ritian's words that he realized that the self-awareness and strength of each life of the 9 lives profound technique was indeed not inferior to the original body. This was especially true when it was derived from the peak state. What I have, all the lives I give birth to have, just like the belief of being invincible. How do I subdue the heart? Chen Hao couldn't help but think of the many times mentioned in the Buddhist scriptures to subdue the heart. Whether it was Buddhism or Taoism, the process of cultivation was the process of cultivating the heart. Cultivators had to see their own heart clearly and subdue it. Only those who could subdue the heart could achieve great success. This was also the most difficult thing for cultivators. And now, Chen Hao, who was in the 8th life, was the process of subduing the heart. Subduing the self and defeating the self. The most difficult thing for cultivators to defeat is themselves, Chen Hao thought in his heart. No, today if I can't even defeat myself, how can I reach the peak? Subduing the heart, Chen Hao must do it. Boom. His mind was affected by the 8th life, and Chen Hao felt as if he had fallen into a heart devil. However, as the aura around him grew more and more terrifying, Chen Hao was suddenly awakened. This awakening caused Chen Hao to break out in a cold sweat. At the same time, it was as if he had suddenly gained enlightenment. Even he couldn't have imagined that in the time it took for a spark to fly off of a spark, a sentence from the Buddhist scriptures, he would feel as if he had been enlightened, as if his mind had been opened. Because of this, something that Chen Hao, as well as everyone else present, would never have imagined would happen. Boom! Under countless astonished gazes, Chen Hao's essence, qi, and spirit, which had been temporarily dispirited because of Chen Hao's words, suddenly erupted in an even more terrifying manner. In an instant, an even more terrifying, majestic, and pure essence, qi, and spirit gushed out from the Baihui acupoint on the top of his head. The walls of the arena didn't hinder it in the slightest. It shot straight up into the sky, as if breaking through the 9 heavens, entering the river of stars, and connecting the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Everyone raised their heads in astonishment and looked at the endless void. This rumble. High up in the sky, in the void, Chen Hao's essence, qi, and spirit, which had connected the heavens and the earth, erupted without any pause. In an instant, with the top of Chen Hao's head as the core, it spread out in all directions. The energy of heaven and earth surged madly, forming rolling dark clouds that converged together. Gales rose up and lightning flashed. This scene caused everyone's eyes to widen in shock. How was this possible? How was this possible? How was this possible? Even Chen Hao himself was momentarily stunned at this moment. He didn't expect this to happen at all, but he knew very well what was going to happen. Divine punishment. His realm was already at the peak of the late stage of the Daluo Golden Wonderland. How could there be a divine punishment? To be precise, how could there be a divine punishment here? However, after experiencing countless divine punishment, Chen Hao knew that this was indeed the aura of a divine punishment. Moreover, just from the initial reaction, Chen Hao could confirm that the divine punishment this time was very, very strong. It was even stronger than the divine punishment of the Golden Scale Dragon realm that he had triggered when he was advancing to the Daluo Jinxian realm. However, Chen Hao knew that this was definitely not the divine punishment of advancing to the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. Firstly, the location was wrong. To advance to the Hongmeng realm, one had to be in the Hongmeng domain. This was a law that existed in all vast thousand domains. Secondly, he had not completed the last step of the prototype of the Hongmeng domain, and he had not activated his aura to trigger the divine punishment. Therefore, this should only be a divine punishment of a small realm. Completed. Chapter 1282. After the heavenly immortal realm was the realm that included the Daluo Golden Wonderland, and it could be said that there was no heavenly tribulation of a minor realm. At this realm, the main source of improvement came from the improvement of one's mental state and comprehension, and it didn't have a strong display in minor realms. In other words, Li Yuan shouldn't have drawn down a minor realm of heavenly tribulation at this moment. Then what would it be? Actions that went against the heavens and triggered the 9 restrictions weren't tolerated by the Heaven Tao, so it drew down heavenly tribulation. In practically an instant, everyone thought of the heavenly tribulation that came from going against the heavens. This was undoubtedly an extremely shocking thing because not only had there been no heavenly tribulation of a minor realm since the Daluo Golden Wonderland, the heaven-defying situation of a cultivator triggering the 9 restrictions was basically impossible. At the Golden Immortal Realm, the realm with the strongest plasticity, the flexibility of a cultivator's strength was rather great. Even if it was the same person at the peak of the advanced stage of the Daluo Golden Wonderland, there would be a terrifying gap of 100 times between the beginning and the end, and it wasn't impossible for it to be even greater. Perhaps it was precisely because of this that there had been no heavenly tribulation of a minor realm since the Daluo Golden Wonderland, and it was extremely difficult for cultivators to defy the heavens to the point of causing the Heaven Tao to not tolerate them. It was precisely because of this that Li Yuan had suddenly drawn down heavenly tribulation, and it caused everyone to be astounded. Exactly what sort of monster is this fatty? How strong is he? This vast and pure essence, energy, and spirit linked up the heavens and the earth, and it swept out like a storm above the 9 heavens. The tribulation clouds roiled while violent winds howled furiously, and it resounded through the heavens and the earth. Heavenly tribulation. Chen Hao muttered while his expression carried a trace of shock that couldn't be concealed. After that, his pupils constricted as he gritted his teeth and said in his heart, "Since it's come, then it'll come even more fiercely." Bang! Rumble! 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 Under the numerous astounded and shocked gazes, Li Yuan suddenly spread open his arms and roared towards the sky. Instantly, amidst the roar that was like surging heavenly thunder, an even more vast and terrifying essence, energy, and spirit sprayed out from the top of Li Yuan's head, and it caused an even more terrifying upheaval in the heavens and the earth. Tribulation clouds condensed madly above the 9 heavens. Within the tribulation cloud, snakes of lightning flickered and thunder rumbled. Numerous thick snakes of lightning quickly condensed and emitted a destructive pressure of lightning punishment. So what if I defy the heavenly punishment? Suddenly, Chen Ritian's arrogant voice was followed by streaks of horrifying swordlight that tore through the void and appeared before everyone's eyes. At this time, everyone came back to their senses. Fatty Li Yuan was still fighting. Stop! Suddenly, a huge hand tore through the sky and pierced through the arena's barrier, directly crushing Chen Ritian's heavenly sword light. At the same time, Dean Qing Wanxiang's figure appeared in the arena out of thin air. Dean, do you mean? The pavilion master of the Great Pavilion immediately rose into the air and questioned with dissatisfaction. Natural treasures are easy to come by, but the grand heavenly punishment is hard to come by. This is something that is extremely rare even in the great world of Xiandi. Let's call a temporary truce and wait for little Fatty to get through the heavenly punishment before starting the battle again. Of course, as compensation, I have decided that Chen Ritian can continue to stay in the arena. However, he is not allowed to attack or interfere with Li Yuan. Of course, little Fatty is not allowed to attack as well. Chen Ritian, what do you think? Thank you. As Chen Ritian spoke, he did not hesitate to put away his pseudo-celestial artifact sword. Then, he turned into a streak of light and approached Fatty Li Yuan. In just a blink of an eye, he was already beside Fatty Li Yuan. It could be said that they were standing side by side. This kid is quite smart. Chen Wanxiang praised Chen Ritian's actions. Obviously, Chen Ritian knew that this was a rare opportunity for him. Fuck. However, at this time, Fatty Chen Hao rolled his eyes at Chen Ritian. Then, he looked at the Dean and said, "Dean, why do you have to call a truce? Alright, since you've said so, we'll do as you say. However, I have a request. Can you let Ao Guang, Ling Feng, and Xuefian in as well? As long as you're willing, of course, there's no problem. I can't wait for you to bring more people in. Unfortunately, I'm afraid ordinary people won't be able to withstand it. The dean, Cheng Wanxiang, was stunned for a moment before a smile appeared on his face. At the same time, he opened the enchantment of the arena. Ao Guang, Ling Feng, and Xuefian looked at each other before they leaped up. Then, they arrived beside Fatty Li. The majestic and terrifying aura of the heavenly punishment instantly pressured the three of them. This was only when the tribulation cloud was formed. How powerful would it be when the heavenly punishment was unleashed? However, although the three of them were shocked, they were not afraid. On the contrary, they knew very well that this was a rare opportunity for them to hone their skills. Move aside. Shameless guy, you want to defeat me with a pseudo-celestial artifact? Don't you feel ashamed? To think that you're ranked first. But Ao Guang looked at Chen Ritian next to him and sneered. What is a loser like you know? Ao Guang, Ling Feng, and even Xuefian did not expect Chen Ritian to turn his head to look at Ao Guang and refute. If you don't use it, it'll only be a draw. If you use it, you'll definitely win. Only an idiot wouldn't use it. Idiot, move aside. Ao Guang was directly stunned by the spit. Ling Feng and Xuefian also frowned. Obviously, Chen Ritian was right. If they were in Ao Guang's shoes, they would definitely do the same. Old Cheng, I'm leaving first. You're leaving already? Play for a few more days, what's the rush? I suddenly remembered that I have something to take care of. That's it, goodbye. Alright then, see you in half a year. I won't send you off. Look after these little guys, don't let anything happen to them. Fuck. You don't have to send me off. No one noticed Li Wuxiang, the dean of the Tanglong Academy, leaving without any face. He did not want to stay a moment longer. As someone who cared about his reputation, he really did not want to continue admiring Cheng Wanxiang's narcissism. Damn it, he knew about Fatty Li's situation, yet he kept asking him how he was doing. What could he do? Praise him? Dream on. However, he couldn't continue to act cool and say that it was sloppy or whatever. If it was still sloppy, how many people in the immortal Emperor Great Thousand Worlds weren't sloppy? If he was too pretentious, he would be struck by lightning. 3 wins in a row. No, this time I have to break the record no matter what. I have to achieve 4 wins in a row and slap Cheng Wanxiang's face as hard as I can. I have to go back and prepare, no matter the cost, damn it. Li Wuxiang thought fiercely. He directly tore open the void and flashed away. Although he also wanted to see Fatty Li Yuan trigger divine punishment, he really could not stand Cheng Wanxiang's face, so he could only leave. Little did he know that it was because of this departure that he greatly underestimated Fatty Li Yuan, Chen Ritian, Ao Guang, Ling Feng, Xuefian, and the others' improvement because of divine punishment. Chapter 1283. The terrifying thunderbolt finally came crashing down from the 9th heaven. It was extremely majestic and terrifying. Just the sudden increase in pressure made the surrounding cultivators aghast. Those with weaker cultivation had to quickly retreat to a safe distance. It was obvious how powerful the pressure was, not to mention the power of the lightning punishment. Chen Hao and the rest who were in the ring bore the brunt of it. Of course, they had to bear the brunt of it. Ao Guang, Ling Feng, Xuefian, and even Chen Ritian felt the increasingly terrifying pressure. All of them had a solemn look on their faces as they gathered their energy to their peak. Although there was a difference between the heavenly punishment from those who had surpassed the 9 limits and the heavenly punishment from those who had broken through, the stronger the cultivator was, the stronger the heavenly punishment would be. It was an indisputable fact that the stronger the cultivator was, the stronger the heavenly punishment would be. This gave everyone a better understanding of Fatty's strength. On the other hand, the Fatty looked at the descending lightning calmly. There was no sadness, no joy, and no worry on his face. His deep, pitch-black eyes didn't have the slightest ripple. Only the essence, energy, and spirit gushing out from the top of his head became more and more condensed and pure. Boom! Rumble! When the first lightning covered Fatty and the rest in endless lightning, The tribulation cloud suddenly surged wildly. An even more terrifying lightning burst out, turning into an endless lightning purgatory that came crashing down. This is too terrifying. The rapid increase in the heavenly punishment's power made everyone exclaim in shock. Come on! Fatty suddenly raised his head to look at the sky. His glabella shone brightly. He opened his arms and allowed the endless lightning to strike his body. Crack! Bang bang bang! The terrifying explosion exploded on Chen Hao's body. Obvious cracks and wounds appeared on Fatty's exposed skin. He was resisting the heavenly punishment head-on. Although Ao Guang, Ling Feng, Xue Fian, and Chen Ritian's heaven's punishment was slightly weaker than Chen Hao's heaven's punishment, they did not have it any easier than Fatty. Almost at the instant when the lightning struck them, they fell into an extremely terrifying heaven's punishment that targeted their souls and bodies. A few seconds later, Ling Feng, who had been blasted black by the lightning, was the first to spit out a mouthful of blood. However, Ling Feng only snorted coldly and did not give up on resisting the heavenly punishment. On the other hand, Ao Guang, who was born with the Monkey King's true undying bloodline, and Xue Fian, who had a strong physical body, were stronger than Ling Feng. As for Chen Hao, his physical body and soul were on par with Chen Hao. Crack! Rumble! What a strange divine punishment. Following the bombardment of the endless lightning purgatory, what shocked some of the experts present was that the might of the heavenly punishment had actually increased by several times, instead of the usual gradual increase. Under such circumstances, the cultivators who were enduring the heavenly punishment were simply unable to make the correct judgment of their limits. In other words, they might be able to withstand it easily a moment ago, but in the next moment, they might be annihilated by the heavenly punishment that had suddenly increased by several times. Such a continuous and strange increase in strength shocked Ling Feng, Ao Guang, Xue Fian, and Chen Ritian. They did not know if they should continue to persevere. The intermittent and sudden increase in strength made it impossible for them to estimate how strong the next increase would be, and whether they could withstand it or not. If they clenched their teeth and persevered, it was very likely that they would be annihilated by the heavenly punishment before they could even resist it. Furthermore, they were unable to determine how long the heavenly punishment would last and how strong it would be in the end. Logically speaking, the heavenly punishment that was caused by defying the heavens would usually last for a short period of time, and there would only be one wave. However, when the heavenly punishment was formed, it showed that it was different. Just by looking at the situation of the tribulation cloud, one could tell that it would not end in a short period of time. Huff, huff, huff. The range of the heavenly fluctuation was still increasing crazily. The heavenly spiritual chi that was gathered by the tribulation cloud did not decrease in the slightest. Instead, it became denser and denser as time passed. Crack, crack. Endless thunderbolts poured down crazily from the tribulation cloud and bombarded the figures in the arena. Ao Guang, Ling Feng, and Xue Fian looked at each other when they saw that the pressure above the 9 heavens was about to soar again. Their eyes were filled with worry as they looked at the fatty in their midst. The fat figure was currently covered in lightning arcs. It was pitch black and covered in cracks, as if it was in danger of collapsing at any moment. This situation made the three of them understand that as the initiator of the heavenly punishment, the power of the heavenly punishment that the fat man had to endure would definitely be much stronger than theirs. Even if they were very close to him, they could not change this fact. Of course, the most important and most worrying point was that the fat man's resistance to the heavenly punishment was much more thorough than theirs. The reason was that Fatty had completely fallen into the illusion of the heavenly punishment in less than a minute. Or it could be said that he had deliberately immersed himself in it and entered a state of wholehearted comprehension, completely throwing the bombardment of the heavenly punishment to the back of his mind. This was a very crazy behavior. It was so crazy that Ao Guang, Ling Feng, and Xue Fian did not dare to try it. However, Chen Ritian, who was determined to compete with Fatty, also immersed himself in the state of thoughtless tranquility, unwilling to be outdone. You guys still want to persist? Ling Feng was the first to speak up. Fatty, this heavenly punishment is really strange. It's not gradual and can't be controlled. If you feel that it's enough, Then leave, lest your body and soul are destroyed. That's true. However, I was born with the true undying bloodline of the Monkey King, so I'm not afraid. If the two of you can't do it, then don't persist. This is not the time to be impulsive. Ao Guang said seriously. What are you talking about? I'm just reminding you and Fian. Do you think I won't dare to persist? I won't hide it from you guys. Heavenly punishments that are even stronger than this, and even more perverse pressure, this big brother has endured many times. Don't look at how miserable I look on the surface. If you want to take my life, it's still too early. Ling Fengping glanced at Ao Guang and said proudly. A long time ago, my body became a weapon. Although this heavenly punishment is strange, it is undoubtedly the best opportunity for me to refine my body. It's very difficult to take my life. Xue Fian said calmly. She, who was resisting the heavenly punishment, was naturally shining with faint runes. Including Chen Hao and Chen Ritian, among the five of them, Xue Fian seemed to be the most relaxed. Then we'll persist until the end. Ao Guang said with a slight headache. Damn it, each one is more arrogant than the other. Ao Guang cursed in his heart. Originally, he was worried about the safety of everyone. As the one who triggered the heavenly punishment, Fatty had no choice. On the other hand, Xue Fian and Ling Feng could withdraw from the competition. However, he did not expect that the two of them would not appreciate it, especially Ling Feng. His words had the intention of competing for supremacy, which made Ao Guang very unhappy. Since that was the case, then let's compete. Chapter 1284. Every few minutes, the terrifying thunderbolts would suddenly increase in intensity. In less than half an hour, Chen Hao and the others were in a terrible state. Even Xue Fian, whose body had reached the level of perfection, was no exception. However, the five of them did not give up. Ao Guang, Ling Feng, and Xue Fian gritted their teeth and persevered, comprehending and enduring. Fatty and Chen Ritian were still in the state of thoughtless tranquility, disregarding life and death. Of course, this could also be understood as their absolute confidence. Will the dean and the others really be all right? In the void, the teachers of the Great Transformation Pavilion, True Martial Pavilion, and other pavilions had unknowingly arrived at the dean's side. The pavilion master of the True Martial Pavilion was worried for Fatty and the others. He wanted to stop Ling Feng, Ao Guang, and Xue Fian from continuing, but was stopped by the dean. Don't worry, Ao Guang is the descendant of the Monkey King. He's not that weak. It's even more impossible for him to die under the heavenly punishment triggered by Fatty's Daluo Golden Wonderland. Ling Feng is not as simple as he looks. I can feel that his state of mind is not inferior to Chen Ritian and Fatty's. He's even stronger than Ao Guang and Xue Fian. I'm sure that this kid's experience is beyond our imagination. As for Xue Fian, as her only direct disciple, do you think she's as simple as she looks? Don't forget that she's disguised her appearance and aura now. This? Dean is right, but please be careful, Dean. Don't let any accidents happen. Mo Shilin naturally thought of what the dean thought, but this heavenly punishment was too strange and irregular. It was better to be safe than sorry. It was not easy for the True Martial Pavilion to recruit such monstrous geniuses. It would be a pity if they died under the heavenly punishment. Don't worry, I've already integrated a strand of my consciousness into their bodies. If necessary, I'll make a move. Dean Cheng Wanxiang narrowed his eyes and said schemingly, boom, chi 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 chi. After another 10 minutes, the fatty, who was immersed in the state of thoughtless tranquility, suddenly trembled violently. Immediately, a mysterious light surged out from his body and spread between heaven and earth. In an instant, the tribulation clouds above the 9 heavens surged even more violently. The speed at which the spiritual energy of heaven and earth gathered suddenly increased by more than 10 times in an instant. What? This little fatty actually entered the state of epiphany that is hard to come by. Amazing, amazing, truly amazing, boom. Just as everyone was exclaiming that Fatty had actually entered the state of epiphany that all cultivators dreamed of when he was enduring the heavenly punishment, Chen Ritian, who was not far away from Fatty and was also immersed in the state of thoughtless tranquility, suddenly trembled violently. It can't be! Soon after, the already shocked crowd was completely dumbfounded. Epiphany met with epiphany. In just a few seconds, Chen Ritian had also entered a state of epiphany. However, this was still not the most shocking thing. What truly shocked everyone was that the moment Chen Ritian entered a state of epiphany, his essence, energy, and spirit suddenly became 10 times, no, 100 times denser. It soared into the sky and pierced through the clouds. Huff, huff. At this moment, a new wave of heaven and earth fluctuations appeared between heaven and earth, clearly telling everyone that another heavenly punishment was beginning to condense. Chen Ritian actually triggered heavenly punishment. Not good. Chi. It was also at this moment that the expression of Dean Qing Wanxiang, who had been fully focused and waiting for battle, changed. Immediately, he opened his hand and suddenly made a move, directly pulling Ao Guang, Xue Fian, and Ling Feng out of the endless lightning purgatory. The three of them, who were already heavily injured but were still holding on, heaved a sigh of relief the moment they came out. They were so shocked that they broke out in a cold sweat. They really did not expect such a terrifying scene to occur. Heavenly punishment met heavenly punishment stacked on top of each other. The sudden increase in the pressure of the heavenly punishment completely exceeded their imagination. It directly imprisoned the three of them, making it impossible for them to escape from the core of the heavenly punishment. Fortunately, the dean acted at this critical moment. Otherwise, when the new lightning descended, they would have been directly annihilated. Dean, fatty bro. Ao Guang looked directly at the dean after his body relaxed and said nervously, "Don't worry, little fatty, and Chen Ritian will be fine for the time being. I have to say, these two guys are really monsters. It's hard to tell which one is better." The dean exclaimed. "That's true. I really didn't expect that the two of them would enter a state of epiphany without regard for life and death. What's even more unbelievable is that Chen Ritian also triggered heavenly punishment at this time, causing heavenly punishment to superimpose." That's right, two perverts," several teachers exclaimed. "Dean, what should we do? Don't let any accidents happen." Mo Shilin said worriedly. Fatty and Chen Ritian had already triggered heavenly punishment because they defied the heavens. One of them triggering heavenly punishment was enough to make him suffer, but both of them triggered it at the same time, causing heavenly punishment to superimpose. That was not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. The two of them might not be able to withstand it. It's fine for the time being. They're both in a state of epiphany now, so it's best not to disturb them. If they really can't handle it, I'll immediately make a move to separate them." The dean said. "Dean, if you want to separate them, then move Li Yuan. Don't touch my disciple, Chen Ritian." The pavilion master of large pavilions suddenly said, "What do you mean? Why should I move Li Yuan and not Chen Ritian?" Mo Shilin immediately retorted. Who didn't know that if the dean moved someone, it would mean interrupting their epiphany? "Why should I? Because my disciple is ranked first. He's destined to be the chief disciple of Large Pavilion's Daluo Golden Wonderland. Any loss would be a loss to Large Pavilion." What a joke. Chen Ritian isn't even the chief disciple yet. Even if the outcome is decided, the winner would be Li Yuan. Don't forget, your disciple said before that he couldn't defeat Li Yuan without using the pseudo-celestial artifact. Alright, what are you arguing about? It's not up to you to decide who to move. Similarly, it's not up to me to decide. I'll move whoever can't withstand it first. At the same time, this will be the result of the competition. If both of them can withstand it to the end, it'll be considered a draw. Within 10 years, the two of them can't duel or challenge each other. After 10 years, when their contribution points reach 0, they can officially duel. That'll be fairer. Mo Shilin was slightly grateful. However, what made the pavilion master of Large Pavilion angry was that the dean, Qing Wanxiang, had said so. Obviously, Qing Wanxiang was against Chen Ritian using the pseudo-celestial artifact to duel with Fatty. Although it didn't violate the rules, it was unacceptable for Fatty to lose because of this. As the dean, he had to take care of the feelings of a monstrous genius like Fatty. Of course, even if Chen Ritian was dissatisfied with his decision, it was nothing. It was more serious than letting a monstrous genius lose the competition. More importantly, the dean knew that the pavilion master of Large Pavilion had given Chen Ritian the pseudo-celestial artifact with this intention. This wasn't what Chen Wanxiang wanted to see. Especially at this moment, when a strand of his mind had merged into the bodies of the two of them, he could clearly feel that Fatty was slightly better than Chen Ritian in all aspects. Chapter 1285. He was the first to trigger the heavenly punishment and was the first to enter an epiphany. Under the heavenly punishment, his physical body and soul were more stable than Chen Ritian's. Other than these factors, what made Chen Wanxiang think highly of Fatty Liyuan was Fatty's personality. Fatty seemed to be high profile, but in reality he was not high profile at all. He was normal in all aspects, and his emotions were reflected on his face. Chen Ritian, on the other hand, had a cold and emotionless extreme Dao personality. This kind of personality could undoubtedly make a cultivator progress bravely. However, it was also because of this that Fatty with a normal personality had greater potential for development. After all, a non-extreme extreme Dao personality was already not inferior to Chen Ritian. If Fatty also had an extreme Dao personality, he would naturally be stronger. Dao Guang, Ling Feng, Xue Fian, and the Carnage Battle team felt the terrifying fluctuations of heaven and earth. They all broke out in cold sweat for Fatty, especially Ao Guang and the other two who had experienced the pressure of the heavenly punishment. They understood how terrifying the heavenly punishment that Fatty and Chen Ritian were enduring was. At this point, even if the three of them were hiding their strength, they had to admit that Fatty and Chen Ritian were strong. Everyone's eyes around the arena were filled with shock and horror as they looked at the two figures in the arena who were almost drowned by the lightning. Everyone felt that it was unbelievable. How could a cultivator at the golden celestial stage withstand such a powerful superimposed heavenly punishment? How strong did one's physical body and soul have to be to do that? Even most of the Grandma's Supremacy Realm disciples present felt that they could not withstand it, let alone Daluo Jingxian. However, Fatty and Chen Ritian both persevered. Even though their injuries were getting worse and their life aura was getting weaker and weaker, they did not dissipate. There were no signs of them being annihilated. What shocked everyone even more was that after the terrifying superimposed heavenly punishment, the two in the Epiphany were still able to crazily extract the power of lightning. As time passed, the superimposed heavenly punishment became stronger and stronger. The dean and the others also became more and more nervous. Their attention was completely focused on the two of them, afraid that an accident would happen. However, what the dean and the others did not expect was that Fatty and Chen Ritian actually persevered until the heavenly punishment ended. The moment the heavenly punishment ended, the fluctuations of heaven and earth disappeared, and the two's epiphany ended, chi. Unlike the heavenly punishment that increased one's cultivation level, the heavenly punishment that defied the natural order did not reverse the effects of the heavenly punishment. Thus, the moment it ended, the pavilion masters of the true martial pavilion and the great grand pavilion acted at the same time. They directly unleashed powerful divine abilities that enveloped the two of them, helping them heal their wounds. Following that, the dean announced his decision. Fatty Liyuan and Chen Ritian were tied for the time being. Both of them would receive the title of prospective chief disciple. However, what the crowd didn't know was that the two people who seemed to be healing were actually communicating telepathically. I lost. Louder, I can't hear you. I lost. However, I will work hard. 10 years later, it is not certain who will win or lose. I like people like you who have a fighting spirit. Work hard. Perform as much as you can. The bigger the commotion, the better. I know what to do. Don't worry. Even if you don't control me with your origin, I won't do anything that will let myself down. What you want to do is also what I want to do. I just want to fight for a dominant position. If I can't do it now, I'll do it next time. Alright, you're always welcome. Cooperate with Ao Guang and the others in the immortal realm. Don't give yourself away. That's it, I'll cut off the connection. After saying that, Chen Hao cut off the telepathic connection with Chen Ritian. As the main body, he naturally had the supreme authority of the main body. However, since he had developed an independent mind, Chen Hao wanted to achieve true awe and not pressure him. Chen Hao didn't know the meaning of doing so, but he felt that it was the right thing to do. Big brother, I'm afraid that the two of them will be our formidable opponents in the future. The path of the immortal emperor shouldn't be a problem for them. Tang Hu said to Murong Qianhua as he watched Fatty Li and Chen Ritian being taken away by their respective pavilion masters. Let's wait until they grow into the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. Murong Qianhua's expression turned serious. Fatty Li Yuan and Chen Ritian's performance today had exceeded his expectations by a lot. Even Ao Guang, Ling Feng, and Xue Fian, whom his master had asked him to get close to, had exceeded his expectations. This was not a good feeling. However, he could not do anything because just now, his master had secretly appeared and once again emphasized the importance of the heart of the strong, the belief of invincibility. Big brother, what do you mean? Tang Hu was puzzled. Xian Yuanshan was also puzzled. Because before this, Murong Qianhua still had the idea of roping in Chen Ritian. I suddenly realized that we have lost our confidence and wavered. They are indeed very strong, but are they definitely stronger than us after advancing to the Grand Mist Supremacy realm? Not necessarily. But now we have taken them to heart and lost our composure. This shouldn't be. We can't lose the heart of the strong. The three of us brothers, our Starlight, are not afraid of any challenges or competitors. With strong opponents, we should be excited and look forward to it because they are the stepping stones on our path to becoming the immortal emperor. Now, what we need to do is to become stronger. We need to become stronger wholeheartedly and face any challenge at any time. Big brother, you're right. Indeed. It's just a small Dehua Academy. How can our vision be limited to this? Big brother, you're still the best. After this day, the challenges between the experts of the Great Transformation Pavilion and the True Martial Pavilion temporarily ceased. Chen Hao, Ao Guang, Ling Feng, Xue Fian, and Chen Ritian all went into seclusion to comprehend the heavenly punishment after this day and did not appear in the testing center's square again. Of course, no one would be so thick-skinned as to challenge them at this time. There was no need to doubt the strength of the five of them. After a month of challenges, Chen Hao and the other new students finally began their real life in the academy. Phew! A new day in a new month. The moment the first ray of sunlight jumped out of the horizon, Chen Hao, who was sitting cross-legged in the cultivation room, opened his eyes on time and woke up from his comprehension. After nearly a month, I've roughly digested it. Heavenly punishment, hee. The corners of Chen Hao's mouth curled up into a smile. Buzz. His body suddenly shook, and suddenly, an extremely fierce aura gushed out from Chen Hao's body. At least my strength has increased by 30%. Looks like my decision was very wise. Epiphany, connecting the eighth anima, epiphany, triggering the heavenly punishment, layering the heavenly punishment. In a short period of time, I've gained enlightenment and tempering, and truly eliminated the gap between me and the great world of Xiendi. The run-in period is complete. Phew. It's time for class today. I haven't felt it in a long time. The corners of Chen Hao's mouth curled up slightly. Unfortunately, there was no charm on his fat face. However, the excitement that could not be concealed was genuine. Chapter 1286. Phew! In the core area of the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm's Disciple Palace district in the True Martial Pavilion, Si Xian, who was sitting cross-legged in the cultivation room, let out a long sigh at almost the same time as Chen Hao and slowly opened their eyes. Class starts today. It's a whole month's time. Damn fatty. Si Xian frowned and cursed in a low voice. In a month's time, Chen Hao didn't enter the immortal realm space even once. Similarly, he didn't look for her either. This made her feel uneasy even when she was cultivating in seclusion in the immortal realm space. Of course, she could also take the initiative to look for Chen Hao. Similarly, because of the high level of her own palace, as long as Chen Hao agreed, She could also cultivate in Chen Hao's palace. However, as a woman, she had said that she would cultivate in seclusion until class time so that she could adapt to the vast thousand worlds of the immortal emperor as soon as possible. However, as a woman, she did not take the initiative to look for Chen Hao. To be precise, she did not take a step out of her palace. Therefore, she didn't know what was happening outside. Stepping out of the palace, Si Xian looked at the mountains in the distance and muttered to herself, "Damn fatty, if you don't look for me today, I'll teach you a lesson." "Humph, I won't look for you." After saying that, Si Xian leaped into the air and was about to fly to the basic unique technique hall. She didn't realize how sensitive and coquettish she was in love. However, just as Si Xian moved, she suddenly screamed in surprise. Hee hee. Without any warning, the fatty appeared out of thin air and held Si Xian's slender waist as he laughed lewdly. "Damn fatty." Si Xian's face instantly turned red as she punched the fatty. "After a month." "Oh no, it should be 100 months, which is more than 8 years. It seems like our relationship has been fermenting well," Chen Hao said shamelessly. "What nonsense are you talking about? What relationship do I have with you? It's useless to be stubborn. Let's go, my dear. It's time for class. Let's talk as we walk." When the two arrived at the entrance of the basic dojo, Chen Hao and Si Xian exchanged information about the past month. When Si Xian learned the reason why Chen Hao didn't enter the immortal world, she was naturally surprised. However, to Chen Hao's slight disappointment, there was no further news from Yilan. It seemed that it would not be easy to find the secret space where the spirit helmet was born. This also meant that the day of meeting the girls had not been decided yet. Junior brother Li Yuan. Sister Chen Si. Just as Chen Hao and Si Xian were about to part ways and head to their respective dojos, a gust of fragrant wind blew over. The president of the Painter Association, Jiang Xiaoyu, and several other ladies came before Chen Hao and Si Xian. "President Jiang? Don't tell me you have classes too." Chen Hao greeted him with a smile. "Senior sister, I've specially come to inform you that our Painting and Calligraphy Association's exchange meeting will be held on the evening of the 15th of this month. Don't forget to attend. Also, give me the contact number of the immortal world so that we can contact each other in the future," Jiang Xiaoyu said. "All right," Chen Hao replied and immediately told Jiang Xiaoyu his contact number through telepathy. "Sister Chen Si, give me yours too," Jiang Xiaoyu said with a smile. Si Xian had also joined the Painting and Calligraphy Association. She was much older than Jiang Xiaoyu and was at the same level. Therefore, although Si Xian was a newcomer, Jiang Xiaoyu was too embarrassed to call her junior sister. However, it was also inappropriate to call her senior sister. She could only affectionately call her elder sister. "All right," Si Xian smiled and also told Jiang Xiaoyu her contact number through telepathy. "Hello Teacher Li, I'm Wan Yu. Please give me your guidance in the future." "Teacher Li, I'm Fong Yun. I really like your painting and calligraphy. I hope to have the chance to receive your guidance." "Teacher Li." Just as Jiang Xiaoyu finished speaking, the ladies around her surrounded Fatty enthusiastically and introduced themselves. Their gazes towards Fatty were filled with admiration and adoration. They did not care about Si Xian, who was beside Fatty, at all. "Cough cough." Fatty coughed awkwardly and said, "Everyone can just call me Fatty. I don't dare to give you guidance. If there's a chance, I'll go to the association frequently to interact with everyone. President Jiang, we still have to rush for class. We'll take our leave first." Go on. Jiang Xiaoyu laughed coquettishly and said to Chen Hao. Then she looked at the ladies and said, "You girls, look at how you scared Teacher Li. Can't you be more reserved? Even Sister Chen Si is here. What's the origin of Tao? Tao can be explained, but it's not the same Tao. No one can say for sure what the origin of Tao is. Every cultivator's understanding of Tao is different. Thousands of people have thousands of solutions, thousands of people have thousands of Tao. To every cultivator, the origin of Tao is different. Tao follows nature, but it is ever-changing. Only by comprehending one's own Tao among the thousands of Tao laws can one trace back to the origin of one's own Tao. It's easy to raise one's cultivation level, but it's difficult to comprehend one's own Tao. It's even more difficult to truly comprehend and control one's own origin of Tao. Even Old Man only touched a little of the origin. The process of cultivation is the process of constantly approaching the origin of Tao. If one day you can control the origin of Tao, then congratulations, you'll definitely become a powerful immortal emperor. Today, Old Man will use the most basic Tao laws of the 5 elements to explain the Old Man's feelings in the process of comprehending Tao for all of you to use as a reference. However, let me remind all of you that Tao is your own. Don't let Old Man's comprehension shackle you. Otherwise, the gains will not make up for the losses. In a dojo, Fatty sat cross-legged alone with a smile on his face as he listened to the old Tao voice that resounded throughout the dojo. Origin of Tao. This was a compulsory course for any academy. At the same time, it was also the most popular class. Not to mention new students like Chen Hao, even the seniors, who had passed their tenure term had signed up to attend. They would only stop when all the teachers who taught Origin of Tao were finished. Thousands of people had thousands of solutions, tens of thousands of people had tens of thousands of Taos. Every teacher's Tao was a different form of inspiration for cultivators. So powerful. He only touched a little of the origin of Tao, and he's already at the true immortal king realm. The aura of a true immortal king, the profound Tao voice, the superposition of the laws of space and time, the supply of heaven and earth spirit chi, the strengthening of the laws of heaven and earth. With such good conditions, I'm afraid ancient chaos will only be able to achieve it after a very long time. There's really no comparison. I can't waste such an opportunity. Fatty, who was sitting cross-legged, sighed in his heart as he sensed the aura of the dojo. The laws of space and time were casually condensed in the dojo, and the teacher was an old true immortal king who had retired to the second line. There was also an extremely rich supply of heaven and earth spirit chi and the strengthened laws of heaven and earth spirit chi. For a country bumpkin, like Chen Hao who had not seen the world, he could not help but be shocked. Originally, I thought that there was not much meaning in attending classes for 10 years. Now, it seems that 10 years is far from enough. No wonder the old students have to use contribution points to exchange for lessons. Phew. These 10 years cannot be wasted. Chapter 1287. Although it wasn't as fun as he had imagined, this was what Chen Hao needed the most right now. Chen Hao calmed his mind and quickly integrated into the old man's Tao sound. Ao Guang, Ling Feng, Xue Fian, and the others who were not far away from Chen Hao were familiar with this method of teaching, but none of them would waste time at this time. In the Great Qian planet, in the core main city of Great Qian City, there was a vast and majestic palace that was shrouded in light screens. Anyone who could step through the entrance of this palace was either a super expert of seventh heaven or a top genius of the great world of Xiandi. Any random one of them would become a top genius of the great world of Xiandi. This was because this palace was the Red Cloud Academy, ranked 32nd among the top 100 academies of the great world of Xiandi. Oh my, Little White is so powerful. He's ranked 10th, a top academy, one of the top 10 experts of the Daluo Golden Wonderland. I love it. In the Red Cloud Academy, outside the testing center square, Chen Hao's fifth life, the Tree of Life, and the freaks Zhou Qinglong, Yin Xian, and the others slowly descended. When they saw Chen Shusheng's name on the ranking list, Zhou Qinglong and the others widened their eyes in shock. Get lost. Hee hee, I couldn't help myself. Why are you so fierce? Little White, don't forget that I'm now in the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. Besides, don't think I can't tell that you have the same interests as me. Damn. Can you stop talking nonsense? You damn sissy, how can I be the same as you? Since you've recognized me as your boss, how dare you compare realms with me? Wait until I step into the Hongmeng Supremacy realm, I'll crush you. Fifth Life said. When he first met the 10 people, Yin Xian and the others expressed that they wanted to follow him, whether it was in the real world or in the celestial realm. Brother Chen, didn't you just enter the great world of Xiandi? 10th place. That's the 10th place already? Yin Xian couldn't help but ask. Although after this meeting, Chen Hao had become quite like Zhou Qinglong, this perverted pervert, which made them a little uncomfortable for a while. Chen Hao's kindness was not forgotten. Fortunately, Chen Hao was not as ruthless as Zhou Qinglong. Of course, Yin Xian and the others also knew that this was due to Chen Hao refining the seed of the tree of life and truly fusing with it. It had to be said that being able to do this was also a very shocking thing. Yeah, this is a top-notch academy, and it's ranked 32nd. Xiang Tiange said. It's just a test result. What's there to be surprised about? It's just so. I'm going to be first. Fifth Life curled his lips, resisting the urge to stretch out his orchid fingers as he spoke in a slightly feminine manner. There was no other way. Although he now had his own independent consciousness and had the desire to compete with his main body for supremacy, he still had to abide by his main body's absolute control. Men and women could not get close to each other. This was the first condition he had to abide by. At this time, he was representing his main body, so he naturally couldn't appear too feminine. Therefore, he could only restrain himself. Brother Chen, thank you for this time. If it weren't for your recommendation, the 10 of us would have to wait 10 years. A few days ago, after Chen Hao's Fifth Life had sensed Zhou Qinglong's aura, he'd met up with them. Of course, Fifth Life had met up with them as Chen Hao. He hadn't told Zhou Qinglong and the others that he was Chen Hao's Fifth Life. There was no need for that. After meeting up, Fifth Life found out that the 10 of them had just stepped into the great world of Xiandi, so he directly recommended them to Red Cloud Academy. Zhou Qinglong and the others relied on their valiant talent and comprehension of the 3 great immortal sutras to obtain special permission to take the test. After all, this round of recruitment had just ended, and with the recommendation of a monstrous genius like Chen Hao's Fifth Life, it was only natural that special treatment would be given. The 10 of them didn't disappoint Fifth Life. At this moment, all of them had passed the test and become members of Red Cloud Academy. Although they weren't in the top ranks, they were still very outstanding, especially Zhou Qinglong and Yin Xian. Little Xian, you don't have to thank us. We're family. All right, let's go back. I've already given you my contact number in the immortal realm. When the time comes, we can contact each other directly through the immortal realm. Brother Chen, wait. Is there anything else? Brother Chen, you really don't plan to return to the chaotic boundless world? We can bring you back through the Hongmeng region. It won't take long. I've already said that if fate wills it, we'll meet again. Just like you, Fifth Life said with a slight frown. But Nguyen Tan Lan is really pitiful. You can't imagine how important you are in her heart. She broke through the controller seal several times in the Daluo Golden Wonderland. Now that she's broken through in the Hongmeng region, she's been trapped by love and has fallen into a demonic trap. That's right. Brother Chen, you're the source of the love demon. Only you can help her. Moreover, you haven't stepped into the Grand Mist Supremacy realm yet, so you can step into the Hongmeng region. When the time comes, just let the controller arrange for an expert who's about to break through to the Hongmeng Supremacy realm to bring you out. It won't affect you much. It'll just take a bit of time. Xiang Tiange, Xiana, and the others immediately tried to persuade Fifth Life. When they'd first met, they'd told Fifth Life about Nguyen Tan Lan's situation. Unfortunately, Fifth Life didn't react. He didn't seem to have any intention of going back to rescue Nguyen Tan Lan. It couldn't be helped. He was only the 5th life of the Tree of Life. If he knew that the person was Chen Hao's 3rd life, the situation might be different. He'd probably set off immediately. All right, don't mention this again in the future. I won't change what I've said. That's all. But don't worry too much. She'll be fine. With that, 5th life took the lead and left. Yin Xian and the others could only shake their heads. The word love couldn't be forced. If the main body knew, I probably wouldn't have delayed for 100 or 1,000 years. If the 3rd life knew, he'd definitely go. He's really quite pitiful. His love runs deep. I don't know where the 3rd life is, but he should be on a nearby main planet. I hope I can meet him as soon as possible. If he won't go anyway, I want to become stronger than the main body. How can I delay? 5th life muttered to himself as he returned to his palace. The top 10 palaces. Red Cloud Academy wasn't divided into 10 pavilions like Dehua Academy. Instead, it was a whole. Therefore, the top 10 palaces were the true top 10 palaces. Fatty Li Yuan's top 10 palaces couldn't compare to them at all. To put it bluntly, Fatty Li Yuan's top 10 palaces were merely the top 10 palaces of the true martial pavilion. Moreover, it was an academy that was one level lower than Red Cloud Academy. Add 1, still 09. Chapter 1288. As for Di Wu Ming, he had relied on the Tree of Life's innate magical powers to gain the favor of the higher-ups in the Red Cloud Academy and become a core training target. Under such a cultivation environment, it was difficult for Di Wu Ming to not make progress. Although Chen Hao had obtained basic information about Di Wu Ming in the immortal realm, he had not connected his mind. Therefore, he did not know the specific experience of Di Wu Ming. It was the same for the other lives. However, when Chen Hao had finished teaching the origin of Tao and entered the immortal realm, he had immediately discovered the arrival of the 9 great geniuses of the chaotic vast thousand world and Xie Na's group of 10 through the communication between the great fates. This made Chen Hao slightly surprised and pleasantly surprised. At the same time, he could not help but think of Nguyen Tan Lan. Tao was heartless, and he thought he could not care less. Unfortunately, Chen Hao could not completely let go. The one who had truly fallen in love with Nguyen Tan Lan was the third life in the demonic realm. However, the one who had truly obtained Nguyen Tan Lan was the original Chen Hao, who had awakened and saved Nguyen Tan Lan. Even though Chen Hao knew that Nguyen Tan Lan had contacted him from the beginning out of interest, he could no longer ignore her like he had done in his previous life on Earth. Unfortunately, Di Wu Ming's communication with Zhou Qinglong and the others did not mention Nguyen Tan Lan again. Chen Hao only felt a ripple in his heart and then calmed down. He did not think much about it. Interest had brought them together. When they parted, Chen Hao did not discover her true feelings. From the beginning to the end, he thought that she was a girl who could give up everything for cultivation. Even so, before Chen Hao left, he had made the greatest compensation to her. He had done his best, and fate had ended. If she did not care, why should he care? The origin of Tao, 10 Essentials of Taoism, and an overview of the 3,000 Great Ways. These 3 days of classes at the beginning of the month made Chen Hao feel intoxicated and unsatisfied. Originally, he thought that since he had the general outline of the Great Ways and the mental cultivation method of the 3,000 Great Ways, the main value of such classes for him should be in the Taoist field, Taoist sound, and other cultivation comprehension. However, what he did not expect was that every teacher who taught the Taoist field condensed by Taoist sound brought Chen Hao a brand new comprehension, and he felt quite enlightened. This was not something that Ling Feng, Ao Guang, Xue Fian, and the others could understand. A teacher's job was to teach and enlighten. Ever since Chen Hao stepped into the world of cultivation, other than Old Man Zhao's personal disciple at the beginning of the Shao family and the occasional pointers from Old Man Shao, he had basically groped his way forward. The number of times that Chen Hao had personally imparted the Tao and used the Tao voice and Tao field to impart the Tao could be counted on one's fingers. Perhaps it was precisely because of this that Chen Hao's feelings and gains from these 3 days of classes were more profound than anyone else's. "Brother Fatty, it's over. Why you still standing there? Let's go." Ao Guang came in front of Chen Hao, who was still sitting cross-legged, and called out to him. 3,000 Great Tao, I wish I could continue." Chen Hao muttered. "It's just an overview. It'll be awesome if you can get the most important general outline of the Great Tao." Ling Feng appeared out of thin air and waved his folding fan lightly. He looked at Chen Hao and continued, "Fatty, you have the 5 elements great art and the teleportation art, 2 of the 3,000 great Tao's unique skills. Moreover, you have cultivated them to an extremely high level. I think you must have obtained the complete Heart Sutra or even the inheritance, right?" "That's right. Let's go. We'll talk as we walk." Chen Hao said hurriedly when he saw many cultivators gathering around him enthusiastically. At the same time, he took the lead and walked toward the exit of the Tao field. "In other words, Fatty, you might probably have more than 3 types of great Tao unique skills that you have completely comprehended, right?" When everyone was flying towards the palace, Ling Feng only communicated with him, Chen Hao, Ao Guang, and Xue Fian through telepathy. If you have something to say, just say it. Why do you need to beat around the bush with me? Chen Hao glared at Ling Feng. I heard the old man, my master, say that the 3,000 Great Tao are the most typical unique skills of the 3,000 Great Tao's unique skills in the immortal world. It's very difficult to cultivate each of them to the extreme. After all, they are not one's own Tao and can only be cultivated as a divine skill, unique skill. Of course, a Tao that suits one is the true Tao. The origin of Tao can only be touched by one's own unique skills. Ao Guang interrupted. However, Brother Fatty's talent and comprehension are outstanding. It's normal for him to cultivate 2 types of great Tao to the extreme, right? Monkey, didn't you hear me say that Fatty might have cultivated 3 types of great Tao to the extreme? Didn't you hear that Fatty didn't refute me? 3 types. It's nothing, right? Who asked Brother Fatty's talent and comprehension to be so strong? Even the Daoyuo Golden Wonderland could have an epiphany and trigger the heaven-defying punishment. This is rare in the great world of Xiandi. I dare not say that I can count them with my fingers, but there are definitely not many people who can do this. What do you know? Old man, my master said that no matter how strong one's talent is, no one can cultivate more than 3 types of Great Tao at the same time unless they obtain the legendary general outline of the Great Tao. I heard this from my master too. It's true. However, it's not easy to obtain it. It has to be passed down. Otherwise, even if the words of the general outline of the Great Tao are right in front of us, we can only understand a little at best. The cold and silent Xue Fian suddenly took over Ling Feng's words and looked at Chen Hao. After a slight pause, she looked straight into Chen Hao's eyes and said, Fatty, you really cultivate 3 types of Great Tao? That means you really obtain the inheritance of the general outline of the Great Tao? Fatty frowned slightly. Even he did not expect the general outline of the Great Tao to be related to the general outline of the Great Tao. Others might not know, but Ling Feng was sure that Chen Hao had at least 3 types of Great Tao. Moreover, he had cultivated all of them to the extreme. How could Ling Feng not know the ultimate form of the Great Change technique? However, Ling Feng only thought of this when the general outline of the 3,000 Great Tao appeared today. That's right. Because of this, there's something that makes me even more confused. The inheritance of the general outline of the Great Tao can only be obtained by reaching the last checkpoint on the path to becoming a celestial emperor, the Emperor's celestial stairway. Moreover, after obtaining it, it can't be passed down to others. This means that Fatty, you couldn't have obtained the inheritance from others. You could only have obtained it yourself on the Emperor's celestial stairway. However, you're only the Daoyuo Golden Wonderland now. Fuck. Brother Fatty, you should be an indestructible reincarnation body? The reincarnation of a celestial emperor? Ao Guang's eyes widened. He had to admit that Ling Feng and Xue Fian's speculation shocked him. At the same time, he understood why Fatty was so heaven-defying. At the same time, Ao Guang vaguely felt that he had found the reason why he was so willing to submit to Fatty at first sight. Little did he know that Ao Guang's speculation was wrong. Chapter 1289. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, why don't I know anything about this? The fat man looked at Ao Guang in surprise, then looked at Ling Feng and Xue Fian. Fatty, don't worry. It doesn't matter if you admit it or not. We'll keep it a secret. Even if you're not the reincarnation of a celestial emperor, you must be a top expert who has entered the endless cycle of reincarnation. Otherwise, how could you be so much stronger than me? Ling Feng said as he fanned himself. How can you be so sure? Chen Hao asked. Of course. Without the primary outline of the Grand Tao, even a true celestial king wouldn't be able to cultivate all 3 Grand Tao techniques to the highest level, let alone a Daoyuo Jinxian. It's impossible. Legend has it that the primary outline of the Grand Tao was created by the strongest person in the celestial world after comprehending thousands of Grand Taos for hundreds of millions of years. The profundities contained in the primary outline of the Grand Tao can't be summed up by the most typical 3,000 Grand Taos. It's known as the origin of all Taos in the celestial world. Based on this, you can see how powerful the primary outline of the Grand Tao is. Only those who have inherited the primary outline of the Grand Tao can merge the profundities of different Grand Taos into one. Otherwise, cultivating 2 Grand Taos is the limit. If you cultivate more, you'll suffer from qi deviation and your cultivation base will be destroyed. In the worst case, your body and soul will be destroyed. Ling Feng said. Is it really that powerful? Of course. Ling Feng said confidently. I've heard about this from my master as well. Unfortunately, there are very few top experts who have obtained the primary outline of the Grand Tao on the Emperor's celestial stairway. Xue Fian added. She seemed to be interested in this topic as well. Fian, it seems like your master is not simple? Ling Feng said as he looked at Xue Fian. Same here, Xue Fian said expressionlessly. Both of them knew in their hearts that the person who knew about the legend of the primary principle of the Great Path must have once stepped onto the Emperor's celestial stairway. Moreover, he must have reached the 2,999th step and was only one step away from becoming an emperor. The 8 emperors from millions of years ago, the few top celestial kings in the world of Xian, and translation of words, Xue Fian translation, Fian, and the 8 emperors from the world of the Grand Tao. And the great celestial words, the 8 emperors from the great world, and the celestial kings, and translation are Fian, words translation, and translation Lin, translation, and Fian translation, Fian translations, Ling translation. However, neither of them said who their master was, nor did they ask for the other's opinion. The fact that they were able to say this at this time already showed that they had enough trust in everyone. Sigh, I also want to be like what you guys said. Not to mention the reincarnation of an immortal emperor, even the endless cycle of reincarnation would be good. But damn it, I haven't awakened any memories since I was young. I haven't awakened any divine abilities, supreme techniques, or comprehension of cultivation. However, I won't hide it from you guys. I do have the complete primary outline of the Great Tao, but I don't know if it's an inheritance. When I first obtained it, I couldn't understand it at all. I knew every word, but I had no idea what they meant when they were put together. It was only when I advanced to the true celestial stage of the great all-embracing heaven that I began to understand it. Moreover, Chen Hao said half-truthfully. There was no need for him to hide too much from Ling Feng, Xue Fian, and Ao Guang. There was no need for him to hide the secret of the general outline of the Great Way. In his opinion, it was not a big deal even if he told the world about the general outline of the Great Way. It was not something that anyone could comprehend and cultivate. Just like Chen Hao, his sisters, and his brothers and sisters, who had not heard about the primary outline of the Grand Tao when Chen Hao was reciting the Sanskrit Grand Tao. However, how much he could learn, or even whether he could memorize it all in his mind, was a problem. Moreover, what? Ling Feng, Xue Fian, and Ao Guang all looked at Chen Hao. Ao Guang was looking forward to it, but Ling Feng and Xue Fian were extremely shocked. This made Chen Hao a little puzzled. Was there a need to be so surprised? What are you talking about? At this moment, Si Xian, who had just come out of another training hall, caught up with them and went directly to Chen Hao's side. After sensing the aura of the voice transmission barrier between the 4 of them, Si Xian asked curiously. It's about the primary outline of the Grand Tao. Cici, why are you here? Chen Hao asked. In these 3 days, Chen Hao had only met up with Ao Guang, Ling Feng, and the others occasionally. After they finished their classes, they returned to their own palaces. There was no need for him to be entangled with Si Xian like glue. Can't I go to your palace to have a look? Of course. It's just that my palace is far inferior to yours. If you don't mind, feel free to come. Sister-in-law, go back and chat. Fatty bro, what's the matter? Ao Guang interrupted rudely. This was the first time he had heard of the outline of the Tao, so he was more curious than Ling Feng and Xue Fian. Fatty, continue. Ling Feng and Xue Fian urged almost at the same time. As they spoke, they looked at each other and could see the shock and horror in each other's eyes. Chi. Chen Hao smiled slightly and did not answer Ao Guang's question. Instead, 3 dazzling milky white light of memory appeared from his glabella and floated in front of the 3 of them. This is the entire content of the outline of the Tao. Perhaps you can remember what I've comprehended. As for what I haven't comprehended, you should forget it after looking at it. Is this considered an inheritance? Fatty bro, no, boss, idol, you're so generous. When Ao Guang heard Chen Hao's words, he directly absorbed the light of memory in front of him into his glabella. I'll go back first to digest it. Ao Guang turned into a stream of light and disappeared first. Fed it. Are you sure? Sure this is the complete outline of the Tao? Are you telling the truth? Ling Feng and Xue Fian looked at the light of memory in front of them in shock and asked in disbelief. Nonsense, how could I, fat bro, lie? Keep it, you're welcome. Do the 2 of you have to be so shocked? When the 2 of them heard Chen Hao's words, they immediately sent out 2 streams of gentle energy. After surrounding Chen Hao's light of memory, they carefully absorbed it into their minds, as if they were putting away the most precious treasure in the world. They were afraid that they would accidentally damage it. Fatty, if what you said is true, from now on, you're my boss. Do you know that no one in the world has the complete outline of the Tao? Even if one obtained the inheritance on the Emperor's celestial stairway, he could only comprehend as much as he could at that time. If he couldn't comprehend it, he wouldn't be able to remember it. But you actually have the complete outline of the Tao in your mind when you haven't comprehended it. And even if you obtain the inheritance, even if you've comprehended it and imparted it to us through the light of memory, we still have to comprehend a little before it disappears to form memories. At most, it's just the tip of the iceberg. It's even different from the real outline of the Tao. Now, do you know why the 2 of us are so shocked? Ling Feng looked at Fatty as if he was looking at a monster and said, I'll go back and verify it now. No matter if it's true or not, thank you very much. Fatty, thank you. Ling Feng and Xue Fian sped up at the same time and rushed back to their palaces. Supplement. Still 08. Chapter 1290. Comprehended by the most powerful master of the immortal world. Seeing Ling Feng and Xue Fian leaving, the harmless smile on Chen Hao's face disappeared. It was impossible for him not to be shocked. After all, this was the first time he had heard about the primary outline of the Great Tao. Even Yi Lan, who was once very powerful, had never mentioned it. To be precise, Yi Lan had not reached the end of his path to becoming an immortal emperor. He had left the great world of Xiandi because of the Galaxy King, so he did not know about it. Although the old god had followed Chen Hao for many years and was very familiar with the primary outline of the Great Tao, he had never mentioned the origin of the primary outline of the Great Tao. I just unearthed an ancient book on Earth. I didn't expect the primary outline of the Great Tao to have such a great origin. According to Ling Feng and Xue Fian, if one has not comprehended the primary outline of the Great Tao, they should not be able to remember the whole text. Although I did not understand it at first, I can remember it. Could it be that what I have is not the real primary outline of the Great Tao? Or is it because I am special? Chen Hao and Si Xian looked at each other, but he was thinking to himself. Si Xian did not ask any more questions. She just followed Chen Hao into his palace unhurriedly. As one of the top 10 palaces in the Grand Mist Supremacy realm, Si Xian could enter Chen Hao's low-level palace unconditionally. You still haven't figured it out? Si Xian asked when they stepped into the cultivation room. I can't figure it out. Forget it. Anyway, I must be very powerful. Yes, I must have a great background. However, I am me. The current me will always be me. No one can change that. Chen Hao said proudly. He looked at Si Xian and paused for a moment. Then he continued, Why? You can't bear the loneliness of cultivating alone so soon? What nonsense! Then why have you come to such a shabby place? A faint smile appeared on the corners of Chen Hao's mouth. His gaze moved around Si Xian's body, and his expression was rather toothless. You don't want me to come? Why would I? I just don't want you to delay your cultivation progress because of me. That's more like it. Fatty, I've realized that the cultivation environment isn't the most important thing for me. I've been stuck at the primordial chaos realm for too many years. What I need the most is my mental state and comprehension of the heavenly Tao laws. My physical body, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and so on. I can barely change them. That's true. Furthermore, I've discovered that when I train with you, I'm subconsciously influenced by your aura. My comprehension speed and state of mind become better. Oh? It seems that your vital yin has reached the point where you urgently need Big Brother to soothe it. We are not dual cultivating, we are just cultivating together. You have this kind of feeling just from the fusion of our auras. If we can truly fuse our yin and yang, the effect will definitely be 100 times better. Cece hee, do you want to give it a try? Damn Fatty, give it a try my ass. Si Xian pushed the shameless Fatty away and said with a blush on her pretty face. She had to admit that Qinhao was right. People were afraid of falling in love. If there were no worries and emotional fetters, Si Xian would not be in this situation. However, after falling in love, Si Xian, who had lived for hundreds of millions of years and still maintained her vital yin body, would have 100 times or even 1,000 times stronger impact on her state of mind than a young woman. It would break the delicate balance of her yin and yang. This was something that she could not control at all. All right, Big Brother, I'll do dual cultivating with you. No way? Si Xian's face immediately turned red. This time, Qinhao directly stuck to Si Xian and kissed her seductive lips in a domineering manner. At the same time, he clasped his hands and entwined them together in a strange position. My dear, just like this, the vital yin body will not be affected by the small circulation of the physical body. When the time comes, you and Xiaofeng will also not be affected. Alright, if you want to cultivate your willpower, just bear with it. When you can't bear it, just enter the immortal world space. Big Brother will enter first. Buzz. After Qinhao finished speaking, the space between his eyebrows shook and his mind completely disappeared from his physical body. At the same time, his true essence naturally formed a small circulation with Si Xian's true essence in their bodies. Si Xian, whose face was red, could not be as calm and free as Qinhao at this time. Her heart was so nervous that it was about to jump out of her throat. Just as Qinhao said, this was indeed the time to train her willpower. But there was no doubt that this kind of dual cultivating was of great benefit to her now, especially in helping her restore the delicate balance of her yin and yang. It was very useful. Even if she entered the immortal world space, her physical body would unconsciously circulate and improve her. It could be said that neither side was delayed. Buzz. Fuck, directly appear again? The moment Qinhao appeared in the immortal world space, he looked at the void in a bad mood. Ever since the last time he tried to ask about Yang Liuyan's parents and Master Han Mei's situation, Qinhao wanted to enter the immortal world space again and meet the humanized Yang Liuyan. But what made him depressed was that he always appeared directly on Earth. At this time, a message notification sounded in Qinhao's mind. Second Life? Finally appeared. Zhulu Academy is indeed the Immortal Emperor's #1 academy. Damn it, each one is more awesome than the other. They don't know how to keep a low profile at all. After secretly checking Second Life's basic information, Qinhao was right. The proud and arrogant Second Life had indeed chosen the #1 academy, Zhulu Academy. When Qinhao began to check Second Life's information, his eyes widened in surprise. This sovereign is very strange. Why would I send a message to myself? Don't be surprised, I know, I'm sending it to you. Sorry, although your 9 lives mystic technique is very strong and has reached a very high level, when I was in the ranking competition, I was discovered by the honorary dean of the #1 academy. He admires me very much. That's right, it's me, not your sovereign. He discovered the 9 lives mystic technique and knew that I'm not the sovereign. But he told me that as long as I'm strong enough, I can break the sovereign's absolute control of the origin. If you're not so ignorant, You should know who this honorary dean is. Legend has it that the strongest person in the great world of Xiandi, the Star River King. Do you know him? I became his disciple. Last but not least, I, Qin Tianhe, will definitely become the absolute leader in the future, or the true independent me. Fuck. The content of the message made Qin Hao clench his fist and curse directly. At the same time, he frowned in confusion. The Star River King. The second life, which was formed by the accumulation of billions of beliefs in the ancient chaos era, was actually seen through by the Star River King. Connect. 1. Qin Hao didn't hesitate for too long. He directly connected his communication with Second Life to both sides. Motherfucker, I'm rebelling. Chapter 1291. Sure enough. You've finally appeared. In the space of the immortal world, on a towering mountain peak, tens of thousands of rays of golden light soaked the void for tens of thousands of miles. Everything was immersed in the golden light filled with a divine aura. At the core of the light, a handsome figure sat cross-legged. He suddenly opened his eyes and spoke indifferently. His pitch-black eyes seemed to contain endless stars, shining with golden light. It was breathtaking. A hint of surprise flashed across Shangshan Ruoshui's calm and composed expression the moment he opened his eyes. Immediately he regained his composure. The corners of his mouth inadvertently curled up. If any young girl saw him, her heart would skip a beat. It was a face with sharp edges and could be called perfect. His eyes were deep, and his temperament was transcendent. Bathed in the golden light, he was even more charming. Who else could it be but Qin Hao? However, this was Qin Hao's second life. His alias was Qin Tianhe, and his second life was condensed with billions of faith. Qin Tianhe's surname was naturally Chen. Tianhe naturally came from the birthplace of the second life, the Tianhe star field of the nirvana space. You're actually using my true appearance? Qin Hao's expression changed the moment the two-way communication went through, and he said sternly, I, Qin Tianhe, can't do something like hiding the head and showing the tail. You're very immersive. Qin Tianhe, huh? Damn it, you've broken free from my restriction? You flatter me. I still can't get rid of it, but temporarily suppressing it for a while isn't difficult for me. Of course, I have to thank the ancient chaos universe for providing me with the power of faith, which is growing at an astonishing speed at all times. Is that so? Of course. Qin Hao, you seem to be very unhappy. You're so confident, you shouldn't be regretting giving me all the power of faith, right? Do you know who the Star River King is? Qin Hao calmed the rising anger in his heart and asked coldly. Of course I do. The Star River King can be said to be the #1 person in the great world of Xiandi. I dare not say that he controls the great world of Xiandi, but he's not far off. I think he even has very high authority in the immortal world space. I know about ancient chaos, you don't have to tell me. As soon as Qin Hao said the words ancient chaos, Second Life stopped him. Idiot, this father will tell you clearly, who cares about the Celestial River King? He couldn't interfere with the space of the celestial world. You won't be able to monitor our communication. Second Fate was taken aback for a moment before he replied, how did you know? You have never seen a Celestial River King before. You can't even begin to imagine how powerful he is. Cut the crap. Once I've decided on something, I'll never be wrong. You actually acknowledged him as your master. Has your fucking head been kicked by a donkey? It's none of your business. I have my own plans and thoughts. It won't take long for me to break free from your shackles. But don't worry, you are me and I am you. You won't give up on me and I won't give up on you. What I want is to surpass you and defeat you completely. I want to become the true leader and take back my women, little Hui and little Qian. My fate is in my control. You'd better not think about trying to rob me of my ability now. The Celestial River King has seen through me, and I chose to acknowledge him as my master. It's not without benefits. Of course, don't worry, I won't do anything to betray you, the other lives, or ancient chaos and the others. All I want to do is become stronger. The road to becoming an immortal emperor is where you and I will have our final showdown. Fuck, do you know that you're asking a tiger for its skin? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. I won't die. If there's nothing important, please don't check my messages. That's all. Don't waste your time on me. You should know that I have plenty of time. Even if I don't cultivate, my cultivation base will automatically increase with the accumulation of the power of faith. Buzz. As Second Fate spoke, Chen Hao's mind shook, and their two-way communication was cut off. Clearly, Second Fate had really closed the connection. That was the only reason why Chen Hao's original body couldn't communicate with him. Of course, Second Fate had also lost the ability to communicate with anyone unless he reactivated the communication function. Phew. Calm down, heart demon. Obsession. He is me and I am him. Subduing him is the same as subduing my heart. There won't be any problems with my basic bottom line. What's there to be afraid of? Chen Hao thought to himself, unable to calm down for a long time. Although he knew that all of this originated from his original body's heart, knowing was one thing. When he actually encountered it, it wasn't easy to accept. Furthermore, Chen Hao felt immense pressure. After all, this was just the beginning. Second Fate was like this, and Eighth Fate was like this. How could the other fates not be like this? If I can't even defeat myself, how can I talk about the peak? From today onwards, except for those in the Eighth Fate, Chen Hao, won't pay attention to any of them. On the road to becoming an immortal emperor, watch how I subdue each and every one of you. Boom. Chen Hao punched out, and endless Tao laws and energy annihilated mountain after mountain. Cultivate. Only cultivation. I need to fight. Second Fate, or rather, the pressure and provocation from the other fates, finally aroused the madness in Chen Hao's bones. He directly sent out a system message. Arena mode charges. I'll simulate the real-time situation of one of the arenas in the great world of Xiandi for you to choose from. Entrance fee, challenge fee, betting money, etc. are all the same. The only difference is that your opponent is me, and I'll simulate the same battle strength of the opponent you choose. Is there a problem? Can I choose Tianhua Planet's arena? Chen Hao asked after a slight pause. Previously, Yang Luyan had said that because he was the only cultivator on Earth, there wouldn't be a separate condensing facility. She would play with Chen Hao. However, Chen Hao hadn't expected that the system would simulate the information of other arenas. Since that was the case, Chen Hao naturally wanted to see which arena he could choose. Tianhua Planet, in the great world of Xiandi, was the main planet of the Immortal Emperor's first academy. It was also one of the strongest main planets among the 3,000 main planets. The monstrous geniuses of the first academy, as well as the experts of the various top forces on Tianhua Planet, would naturally appear in Tianhua Planet's arena. Sure. Any other questions? None. Beep, beep, beep. Following Chen Hao's words, a huge display screen suddenly appeared in front of him. Densely packed names, realms, battle records, status, and other information were displayed. Buzz. At the same time, in the cultivation room, the space between the eyebrows of Chen Hao's original body blossomed with a dazzling light. The mysterious space of the immortal realm directly devoured 1,000 of the immortal essence crystals that Chen Hao had stored in the spirit realm's helmet. Please choose your opponent. A voice that didn't contain any human emotions, but was exceptionally pleasant to the ears, rang directly in Chen Hao's ears. Chen Hao stared at Yang Lin, who was right in front of him, a little dumbfounded. 3 more, 7 more. Chapter 1292. Since Chen Hao stepped into the immortal dimension, he'd only heard Yang Liuyan's voice and never seen her. Her voice that was pleasant to the ear like the sound of nature caused all men to be unable to refrain from wanting to see her beautiful appearance, and the pure man Chen Hao was naturally no exception. Especially after a series of interactions, Chen Hao confirmed that Yang Luyan was not a simple NPC, but was full of humanity. More accurately, she was a real existence, and he was even more curious about her. And now, Chen Hao finally saw Yang Luyan in person. But what made Chen Hao extremely shocked and surprised was extremely disappointed. How could it be like this? That voice was as beautiful as the sounds of nature. Although her appearance was not to the extent that it could scare people to death, she was really too ordinary, too ordinary. At best, she had a curvaceous and exquisite figure that was worthy of her heavenly voice. Her appearance was really not complimentary at all. This was really a far cry from Chen Hao's guess, and he could not help but be shocked. Please choose your opponent. Yang Liuyan's rather robotic voice sounded again. Cough, cough. Chen Hao kept his shocked and disappointed expression and coughed awkwardly. His gaze quickly swept through the information on the display screen in front of him, and he realized that there were only a few opponents for him to choose from, and they were all rookies with 0 battle records. There were no bets. There was no other way. Chen Hao could only choose from them. After all, being able to simulate a battle with him on Earth was already very good. What else did he want? Moreover, Chen Hao was very clear that the special mode that Yang Liuyan had activated for him was definitely equivalent to a super cheat. The entry fee, challenge fee, bets, and other conditions were all real, but the opponents were all simulated by Yang Liuyan. In other words, Chen Hao could choose any of the opponents he met, and he did not have to worry about the opponent rejecting his challenge at all. After all, Yang Liuyan was only using a bunch of data from the Tianhua planet arena. In this super cheat mode, Chen Hao did not have to worry about the consumption of immortal essence crystals at all. Boom! The moment Chen Hao confirmed his opponent, Yang Liuyan's aura suddenly changed, and at the same time, a mysterious wave surged around the two of them. What made Chen Hao extremely shocked was that this world, under the mysterious wave that Chen Hao could not understand at all, changed on its own and became a huge arena with a barrier seal. Chi 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 chi. Without any opening words, the moment the arena seal was completed, Yang Liuyan's aura surged wildly, and a majestic and terrifying pressure suddenly swept across the area. Boom! Immediately, a great battle erupted. Chen Hao began his crazy challenge journey. It's definitely the general outline of the Dao. Only the general of Dao. That day, Ling Feng, who had returned to the palace and started to digest the light of memory that Chen Hao had imparted to him, woke up in shock at dawn the next day. Ao Guang had not come into contact with the complete general of Dao, but he was sure that the light of memory that Fatty had imparted to him was definitely the content of the general of Dao. The reason was very simple. He had seen it, but he, the great Daoyuo Jingxian, could not remember it at all. Only the legendary general of Dao could be so mysterious. Otherwise, why could he not remember it? Of course, just as Fatty had said, Ling Feng still retained a little bit of the general of Dao that Fatty had completely comprehended. Unfortunately, even if it was just a little bit, he did not understand it at all for the time being. Fatty, what kind of monster is he? Inheritance, this is an inheritance, and it's an inheritance for someone else. How is this possible? Ling Feng said to himself in shock. To be able to condense the general of Dao into a light of memory and pass it to someone else, and to remember a little when he had not comprehended it, if this was not an inheritance, what was it? This was something that no one had ever done in the legends. But Fatty had actually done it. Almost at the same time, Xue Fian and Ao Guang were also in their own cultivation rooms. They were in the same state of shock as Ling Feng. Unfortunately, in the face of such a precious gift from Fatty, the three of them felt that they could not comprehend it at all. At least, there was no possibility of comprehending it at all now. They could only think about it after they had improved their cultivation level. This also made the three of them feel that Fatty's strength was even more unfathomable. At the same time, they were more inclined to believe that Fatty was most likely the reincarnation of a celestial emperor. Tang Long Planet, the first-class Tang Long Academy. In the Tang Long Hall, Li Wuxiang, who had just returned from the Dehua Academy, sat cross-legged. His gaze slowly swept across the 20 young men and women who were sitting side by side. He did not speak for a long time, causing the 20 of them to be surprised and slightly nervous at the same time. Among the 20 young men and women, 10 of them were from the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm, and the rest were from the Daoyuo Golden Wonderland. Each of their auras was extremely powerful in their respective cultivation level. Even Qin Hao did not dare to underestimate them. Master, could it be that the disciples recruited by the Dehua Academy this year are also very strong? Among the 10 young men from the Grand Mist Supremacy realm, the female disciple with the strongest aura, a beautiful face, and a hot figure who looked extremely sexy but had an invisible domineering aura took the lead and asked first. Dean Li Wuxiang glanced at the woman, and his furrowed brows finally relaxed a little. He shook his head slightly and said, "The disciples recruited by the Dehua Academy this year are indeed very strong, but ours are not bad either. It's not enough to make you worry, Master." "Then, Master, what are you? A great era is coming. First-rate academy, we have been outside the top 100 for nearly a million years. I thought that we would have a chance to enter the top 100 in the next batch, but I, your master, have come to realize that there is no hope for the next batch as well. In these 100 years, especially in the last 10 years, countless monstrous geniuses have appeared. There are even some personal disciples and successors of some great old figures who won't die. In addition, there are also many extremely monstrous outsiders who have appeared. An old friend of mine who is proficient in the great deduction arts said that a great era is coming for the cultivation world. The door to the celestial realm that no one has opened for countless years will be opened in the near future." Ah! Li Wuxiang's words caused the eyes of the 20 young disciples to widen. "And you will be the generation with the most hope. Perhaps this is the reason why so many monstrous geniuses have appeared one after another. Even more shocking is that the Emperor constellation has appeared in the chaotic space." The Emperor constellation? Emperor constellation? Dean, what does the Emperor constellation mean? A young disciple could not help but ask. In the endless galaxy and the vast starry sky, there are countless greater worlds, primitive secret realms, and nirvana realms. Every greater world, primitive secret realm, and nirvana realms once had an expert at the celestial emperor level. Celestial emperors are immortal existences who have jumped out of the 3 realms and the 5 elements. They have truly transcended the long river of fate. But now there is not a single celestial emperor. Billions of years ago, there was a period of history that had disappeared. Today, billions of years later, everything related to the celestial realm and the celestial emperor level can only be heard in legends. No one has seen it. Of course, these legends are not baseless. Some of them originate from ancient ruins and Tao marks. One of the legends that has existed for countless years, and almost no one believes it, is the legend of the Emperor constellation. Chapter 1293. The Legend of the Emperor Constellation. Master, what is it? The Emperor constellation of chaos has appeared, and the celestial emperor of the great thousand worlds has appeared. Li Wuxiang raised his head to look at the sky. His gaze seemed to penetrate the huge palace and enter the boundless chaos space. His low voice contained a kind of respect for the heavenly Tao. The Emperor constellation of chaos has appeared, and the celestial emperor of the great thousand worlds has appeared. With just 2 sentences, the 20 disciples present were all shocked. What did it mean for the celestial emperor to appear? The appearance of an emperor star means that a reincarnated celestial emperor will be born. Now, the Emperor constellation of chaos has appeared. The Emperor constellation. Li Wuxiang's next words were even more shocking. According to my old friend's prediction, in the next 100 years, a few terrifying monstrous geniuses will appear in the world of cultivation. Moreover, they should be from the Daluo Golden Wonderland and the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. Perhaps, as he spoke, Li Wuxiang looked at the 20 young men and women present again. After a slight pause, he continued, "Perhaps there are reincarnated celestial emperors among you who have yet to awaken." "It can't be?" "Of course, the probability of this is very small, but it can't be ruled out. However, no matter what, all of you are heaven's proud sons in the immortal emperor world. Since you are able to catch up to this once-in-a-billion-year grand era, then you must have the ambition to reach the peak. Regardless of whether you succeed or not, your life will not be in vain. All right, I've gathered all of you here to tell you that in half a year's time, we will have a friendly exchange with the University of Dehua. Don't let your guard down. What I told you before is no longer accurate. This batch of new students is very strong. Yun Tian, the original first seat of the Daluo Golden Wonderland, was defeated by the new students. Dean, this is nothing, right? Yun Tian's strength is barely enough to be my opponent. Brother Shichao still defeated me, didn't he? A disciple of the Daluo Golden Wonderland said proudly. I was just lucky, the young man called Shichao said modestly with a slight smile. There were 2 new students who defeated Yun Tian. When the 2 of them were fighting for the position of first seat, one of them actually triggered a heaven-defying punishment. What? Everyone was shocked, but the young man named Shichao and the strongest sexy woman in the Grand Mist Supremacy realm were not too surprised. Clearly, defying heaven's punishment was not enough of a deterrent to the 2 of them. She was a sexy woman from the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. She was famous even in the University of Dehua, nicknamed Queen. She was the direct disciple of Li Wuxiang, the dean of Tanglong Academy, and the chief student of Tanglong Academy's Grand Mist Supremacy realm, Ding Ling. Other than that, there are 3 other rookies who are second only to the 2 of them. Among the 3, one of them is a descendant of the Monkey King. Descendant of the Monkey King? This time, even the calm Shichao and Ding Ling frowned slightly. Clearly, Li Wuxiang's words of descendant of the Monkey King shocked the 2 of them. The bloodline of the Monkey King was said to be invincible among those of the same level. Yet, they hadn't been able to obtain the position of chief disciple. Just how strong were those 2? Hence, it's best not to underestimate the Dehua Academy. Naturally, there's no need for you guys to be too worried. The descendants of the Monkey King have yet to reach the peak of their cultivation base. That was why he wasn't as strong as the other 2. Shichao should be a bit stronger than them. Dean, what's the name of the Monkey King's descendant? What's the name of the other 2? Can you give us their specific information? Don't worry, I'll give it to you guys later. The situation in the Daluo Golden Wonderland is basically like this. In the Grand Mist Supremacy realm, Tian, you can't be careless. There are 3 rookies who are very strong. They directly took the top 3 in the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. One of them stayed in the First Academy for over 1,000 years. One of them is the founder of the Starlight Squad. He's also the strongest of the 3. The last one is the leader of the 4 great talents of planet Dehua, Tang Hu of the Tang family. Oh, it seems like this time will be interesting. You little girl. Master, don't worry. I've never underestimated any opponent. That's good. This is their information and all that I've gathered. Go back and take a good look. Although it's a friendly competition, it's also related to our Tanglong Academy's fortune and reputation. If Dehua Academy can't win consecutively, what hope do we have to become a top academy? Alright, you guys can go now. Yes. Tanglong Academy and Dehua Academy were brother academies. They had an exchange once every 10 years, and each academy would send 200 disciples. The Daluo Golden Wonderland and the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm would send 100 each. As for the Dao Severing Perfected Immortal Realm, they were not included in the exchange. It was only a realm that was more malleable than the other 2. And for each realm, there would be 50 senior students and 50 new students. Only in this way could the significance of the competition be highlighted. It could be said that it was a competition that promoted and encouraged each other. Under normal circumstances, it was scheduled to be held half a year after the recruitment of new students. All along, the 2 academies had been on par with each other. However, in the last 3 years, Tanglong Academy had won 3 consecutive victories because of Li Wuxiang's hard work. This time, he had made a special trip to Dehua Academy again. Hard work. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you'll never be defeated. The effect was more or less there. What? Emperor's Star Group? You're saying that the Emperor's Star Group has appeared in the chaotic space? A few days after Li Wuxiang learned about the Emperor's Star Group from his old friend, the news spread throughout the cultivation world of the great world of Xiendi. The Emperor's Star has appeared, and the immortal Emperor has appeared. No wonder so many old fellows' successors have accumulated to this generation. No wonder more and more geniuses have emerged in the past 100 years, and they're getting stronger and stronger. The immortal emperor has appeared, who is the reincarnated spirit of all things. Countless people's gazes were fixed on the super monsters that had emerged in the past few years. Unfortunately, it should have been easy to sense the aura of the spirit of all things, but no one could discover who was the reincarnated immortal emperor. This was because the emperor's star had an invisible seal. Beep, 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 battle, enlightenment, battle, enlightenment. After dozens of cycles, Chen Hao, who was immersed in enlightenment, suddenly received a verification request. Pavilion Master? What surprised Chen Hao was that it was actually the Pavilion Master of the true martial pavilion, Mo Shilin. Previously, Chen Hao's communication number had been reported to the true martial pavilion. No one else could know, but the Pavilion Master had the authority. After all, many communications were conducted in the immortal world. Little fatty, you're in seclusion again? Yes. In this world where the strong prey on the weak and experts are as common as the clouds, I feel that the Mount Pear Mountain is huge. I have to work hard. I don't want to get beaten up. You really know how to talk. However, you're right. Hard work is as important as talent. You can't do without either. Pavilion Master, is there something you need? Yes, there is indeed something. The Dean is looking for you. There's a special mission that needs you to do. Pavilion Master, I'm still in class. There are still 3 courses in the middle of the month and 2 at the end of the month. If I go out to do a mission, I'm afraid I'll be delayed. Don't worry. Since the Dean asked you to go, as long as you complete the mission, you can make up for any missed classes. Is that so? Pavilion Master, what mission is it? I don't know the details yet, but the Dean specifically asked you and Wan Yishui to do it. It should be an academy mission to compete for resources. This is the Dean taking care of you. Quickly leave the immortal world and report to the Dean. Chapter 1294. Academy missions to compete for resources? Chen Hao asked, puzzled. The great world of Xiandi is vast and boundless. Not to mention the great world of Xiandi, there are still many areas on the 3,000 main planets that cultivators have yet to set foot in. The various academies and powers are also searching for secret realms, heavenly treasures, ancient legacies, and so on. If 2 or more powers discover a certain resource at the same time, the usual solution is to send disciples of the Daluo Golden Wonderland or Hongmeng to fight for it. This is a good opportunity for you to gain experience and obtain some resources immediately. This is a great benefit. Of course, the greater the benefit, the greater the risk. When fighting for resources, life and death are your own responsibility. This type of mission is usually assigned by the Dean and other higher-ups. It is not publicly announced and freely accepted. We call it academy missions. Alright, hurry up and go. Only the Dean knows the specifics. Alright. Chen Hao made a sound of acknowledgement and cut off his communication with Mo Shilin. He then sent a message to the 8th anima, Chen Ritian. He was going to leave, and Chen Ritian naturally couldn't appear in the immortal world under his identity. He also sent a message to Si Xian. After exiting the immortal realm, Chen Hao cancelled his dual cultivation with Si Xian and left the palace. Sister Shui? What a coincidence, let's go together. Chen Hao had just stepped out of the palace when he saw Wan Yishui flying in the air. In the challenge competition, Wan Yishui had narrowly defeated the 8th master with her Azure Silk Jade Wave art. She was already one of the top 10 masters in the true martial pavilion. Naturally, her palace had been moved to the top 10 palaces, next to Chen Hao's. Looking at the fatty who took the initiative to come over, Wan Yishui looked a little angry. She glared at the fatty, but didn't say anything. However, she muttered in her heart, why would the Dean arrange for her to go on a mission with the fatty? After all, Chen Ritian, Xue Fian, and the others were stronger than her. Of course, although she didn't understand and hated the fatty's annoying face, she didn't reject him in the slightest. Academy missions were rare glory and excellent training opportunities. After not seeing you for a few days, Sister Shui, you've become even more beautiful. Your green silk jade ripple technique seems to have improved again? Impressive, impressive, I like it. Damn fatty, don't come so close to me. Wan Yishui said angrily, but he was surprised at the fatty's eyesight. After going through the challenge competition, she had indeed gained new insights. Her azure silk jade ripple technique had also made a new breakthrough. However, she had not released the slightest bit of the azure silk jade ripple technique's aura, yet it had still been sensed by the fatty. Chi. Wan Yishui sped up. However, the fatty revealed a harmless smile, shook his head, and followed behind Wan Yishui, flying in tandem. However, soon, Wan Yishui couldn't take it anymore. It was as if he felt the fatty's lecherous gaze on him, making him feel uncomfortable all over. Damn fatty, don't stay behind me. Then, is it above you or below you? You go to the front. Compared to the perverted fatty, Wan Yishui was too naive. He didn't hear fatty's flirting at all. He braked and let fatty fly first. Although it would be best if he didn't go with fatty, the two of them had to go to the dean's palace together. There was no other way. The fatty swung his big butt, chuckled, and flashed away like lightning. When the two of them arrived at Dean Qing Wanxiang's palace, a young man and woman stood proudly in front of Qing Wanxiang. Their expressions were arrogant, and they looked at Fatty and Wan Yishui with a somewhat condescending gaze. Daluo Golden Wonderland. Your aura is very strong and you look very cool. Could it be that you're also here for a mission? Such an infuriating gaze made Fatty squint his eyes slightly. His white and chubby face revealed a harmless smile again as he sized up the two people. The young man was tall and slender. His face was like jade, and he wore a white robe that was spotless. He looked like a dog. The woman was very beautiful. She wore a black Taoist robe that showed off her mature and sexy figure. Just from the aura of the two of them standing side by side and complimenting each other, one could guess that the two of them were real Taoist companions. Moreover, they had cultivated for many years with the fusion of yin and yang. Dean Cheng, are these the partners you chose for us? The young man asked in a rather arrogant tone. That's right. Old man, let me introduce you to each other. This is Li Yuan, our Taoist Academy's Daluo Golden Wonderland's prospective chief disciple. His combat strength and talent are very strong. This is Wan Yishui. Although she's not the strongest female disciple in the academy, her azure silk jade ripple technique can allow you to display stronger combat strength as a whole. Is that so? That sounds good. Unfortunately, my feelings tell me that it's not much. However, it doesn't matter. When we took the task, we never thought of relying on others to complete it. Just help us. The young man's words were even more arrogant than his arrogant expression. Although the woman didn't speak, her peacock-like proud eyes were obviously the same as the man's. She didn't like the fat man and Wan Yishui at all. Dean Qing Wanxiang frowned slightly, but he couldn't say anything. The two of them were foreign aid that he had hired with a lot of money. Although they were a little arrogant, Qing Wanxiang knew that they did have the qualifications and strength to be arrogant. Dean Qing Wanxiang sent a voice transmission to calm down the smiling fatty and the slightly frowning Wan Yishui, who was obviously very unhappy with this adulterous couple. Dean Qing Wanxiang continued, the two of them will cooperate with the two of you. In this competition, we will have to rely on the two of you. Fat man, Yishui, let me introduce you. This is Xiao Mantian, a direct disciple of the Xiao clan of the Star River King. Ah? The fat man suddenly exclaimed in an exaggerated manner. Xiao clan? Although Wan Yishui was not as exaggerated as the fat man, she also showed a touch of surprise. There was no other way. What kind of concept was the Xiao clan of the Star River King? Anyone would be surprised if they heard it. Xiao Mantian and his Dao companion were not surprised by the two's surprise. They had experienced such things many times, which made their natural sense of superiority stronger and more arrogant. In time, Xiao Mantian may have the hope of becoming the Daluo Jingxian king. His combat strength and talent are extremely heaven-defying, and he has a very high reputation in the great world of Xiandi. This is his Dao companion, also a genius disciple of the Xiao clan, Feng Hanwei. Together with Mantian, Their combat strength is extremely terrifying. Old Man specially invited them to be foreign aid for our academy this time. Dean, what is the task? Pavilion Master didn't tell me. Wan Ishue asked. Wan Ishue was no stranger to foreign aid, but under normal circumstances, due to face and other problems, they generally wouldn't ask for foreign aid. This was the first reason. The second reason was that the price of asking for foreign aid was too high. Chapter 1295. Therefore, unless it was an extremely important matter, they would not spend a huge amount of money to ask for outside help. The so-called outside help was basically the strongest experts within a certain realm, and it had nothing to do with the realm itself. This was because the competition was limited to those within the same realm, and it was only a competition of the combat power of those within the same realm. In other words, only those with extremely strong combat power within the same realm were qualified to be outside help. Just like this time, the University of Dahua had agreed with the other competing forces that the contestants from the Daluo Golden Wonderland would compete. Therefore, they could only invite the strongest existences from the Daluo Golden Wonderland as outside help. Under normal circumstances, the super experts of the Daluo Jingxian and Hongmeng Supremes, who were often used to compete for the ownership of resources, were very popular. This was especially so for famous cultivators like Xiaoman Tian and his wife, who would receive many invitations. Of course, before the competition began, the identity of the outside help would be kept a secret. A month ago, in the chaotic space between the 5 main planets, Dahua Planet, Dark North Planet, Cloud Sea Planet, Thunderclap Planet, and Bitter Sea Planet, there was a strong disturbance of the heavens and earth. Perhaps it was because of the recent appearance of the Emperor Star Group, which caused the change in the atmosphere, but when the experts from the 5 main planets rushed over, they discovered an ancient secret realm. Primitive secret realm? Chen Hao asked in surprise. That's right, and it's the Daluo Golden Wonderland's primitive secret realm. After a discussion among the upper echelons of the 5 main planets, it was decided that each force would send 2 men and 2 women to enter the secret realm at the same time. The time limit is half a year, and the total value of the heaven and earth spiritual items, absolute arts, and inheritances will determine the ownership of the primitive secret realm. No one knows the exact situation inside, but since it's a primitive secret realm, the heaven and earth spiritual items, inheritances, and other resources will definitely not be bad. This is a very important matter to our university. So, little fatty, I hope you won't hold back. Dean, do I look like I'm holding back? Chen Hao asked awkwardly. In his battle with Yun Tian and the 8th anima Chen Hao had indeed held nothing back. However, he hadn't expected the dean to think that he had held back. Only you know, Old Man is just reminding you. Ishue, put aside the conflict between you and Fatty for now. Cooperate well. In this half a year, everything you obtain in the primitive mystic realm will belong to you after its value has been appraised. In addition, if you can let our Faculty of Medicine successfully obtain the rights to it, you will also receive a percentage of the commission from the primitive mystic realm. Dean Cheng is really generous to actually treat the 2 of them as external aid. With all due respect, since you offered the same conditions as us, why don't I step forward and invite 2 good friends who are definitely stronger than them? Xiaoman Tian looked at the fatty and Wan Ishue before speaking to the dean with disdain. Obviously, he was too proud to acknowledge Fatty and Wan Ishue's strength. Xiaoman Tian, could it be that you're not confident? Not confident? Xiaoman Tian smiled and shook his head as he asked. After a slight pause, he continued, no matter how confident you are, you should understand that nothing is absolute in this world. There's always someone better than you. It's better to be safe than sorry. For the same price, I can help you invite 2 external aid who are stronger than them. You'll have a greater chance of success, so why not? Most importantly, the people I invite have cooperated with us several times before, so it'll be easier for us to work together. No need. I believe in the 2 of you. Also, you've neglected something. Li Yuan and Wan Ishue are both genius disciples of our Faculty of Medicine. Giving them more benefits is something our faculty of medicine should do. Furthermore, the two of them aren't weak. It'll be a rare opportunity for them to gain experience. Not to mention that their strength is only average to me. This level of competition for resources still requires experience. A rookie who only knows how to fight, even if he's stronger, won't be able to obtain the final victory. What's more, rookies who aren't strong enough. However, it doesn't matter. Since Dean Cheng has decided to do this, then so be it. As long as they don't drag us down, there won't be a problem. To put it bluntly, we only have victory in our eyes. We don't necessarily care about anything else. Therefore, life and death are up to fate. If an accident really happens, it has nothing to do with us. That's natural. Little fatty, Ishue, for this mission, you have to cooperate with them. Coming back alive is the first priority, and completing the mission is the second priority. Do you understand what I mean? Understood. Chen Hao and Wan Ishue responded at the same time. Although they were unhappy with the arrogant Xiaoman Tian, they did not say anything. From the aura of the two and the attitude of the dean towards them, they could see that the two of them were very important to this mission. In Wan Ishue's view, the other party did have the qualifications to be arrogant. However, the fatty, who also did not say anything, was not so simple. Just the identity of the Celestial River King as a direct descendant of the Shao family made the fatty a little unhappy. How dare they despise this Master Fatty and act like they're nothing in front of this Master Fatty? The fatty did not say anything because he knew that it was useless to say anything. Some people needed to use real actions and real strength to slap their faces. Well, let's go. We'll talk as we go. Sush. Cheng Wanxiang waved his hand and sent out 4 energy beams that wrapped around Chen Hao, Xiaoman Tian, and the other two. Then he stepped into the void. Buzz. After entering the chaotic space, Cheng Wanxiang's aura suddenly gushed out, and then his speed soared by thousands of times. So fast. Wan Ishue was shocked. Is this the speed of a true immortal king? Chen Hao was also surprised. At this moment, Chen Hao felt that his great teleportation technique was nothing in front of Cheng Wanxiang. There was no comparison at all. Even if I push the great teleportation technique to the extreme, I can't even reach 1/10,000th of its speed. A true immortal king? Only with this kind of strength does he have to travel in the starry sky? Even though Chen Hao was protected by Cheng Wanxiang's energy, he was still shocked. Shuttling in the violent chaotic energy at such a high speed seemed to have formed a continuous energy storm. With his strong soul perception, Chen Hao was sure that if Cheng Wanxiang withdrew his energy protection at this moment, Chen Hao, Wan Ishue, and Xiaoman Tian would all be smashed to pieces. In front of an absolute realm, even the most powerful magical power and law are nothing. What Cheng Wanxiang used was the simplest flying magical power, but it turned the speed that Chen Hao was so confident in into nothing. Of course, Chen Hao's confidence was not affected at all. He was not stupid enough to compare himself with a true immortal king. This time, more than 3,000 forces from the 5 main planets are participating in the competition. Each force is made up of 2 men and 2 women. However, for the 4 of you, your biggest opponent is the top academy, the Hogu College. The top academies were independent forces outside the 3,000 main planets, but it did not mean that they were not on the 3,000 main planets. The Hogu College was located on the Bitter Sea Star and was one of the most powerful forces in this competition. Chapter 1296. Next are the Dark North Academy, Cloud Sea Academy, Thunderclap Academy, and Bitter Sea Academy. Apart from them, the other academies and powers are nothing to be afraid of. However, don't think that it's just a simple competition. Whoever obtains the most spiritual items of heaven and earth and ultimate skill inheritances will win. This is a competition without any rules. The strong will be respected. When the time comes, killing and robbing will definitely occur. It's even possible that some forces will join forces. Therefore, you must be careful. At the same time, you must be prepared to join forces. Better safe than sorry. As the only top academy, deep ancient academy probably won't be able to lower themselves to ask for outside help. However, the other 4 first-rate academies will definitely do the same. As for who they will invite, we don't know for the time being. In short, treat this seriously and be careful. 1 back, 5 back. Chen Wanxiang led the 4 of them as he quickly flew forward. At the same time, he gave instructions to Chen Hao and Wan Yishui. Chen Wanxiang didn't need to say much to the arrogant Xiao Mantian's Dao companion. They were one of the more famous Grand Luo experts in the great world of Xiandi. They had acted as outside help many times and were experienced and powerful. What Chen Wanxiang said was only the most basic information. In the chaotic space, rumbling sounds could be heard. It was like a spatial storm as they moved forward at lightning speed. Even with such astonishing speed, they still needed 10 days to reach their destination. Chen Wanxiang didn't feel anything when he was giving instructions, but after he finished, the atmosphere between Chen Hao and Wan Yishui became a little strange. It was unknown whether Chen Wanxiang did it intentionally or not, but when he protected the 2 of them, he also protected Chen Hao and Wan Yishui in an energy seal, just like how he protected Xiao Mantian and his Dao companion. It could be said that they were very close to each other, and the faint fragrance of Wan Yishui's body could be clearly smelled. The 2 of them stared at each other for a full minute. Only then did Wan Yishui snort and turn her face to the side with a slightly red face. The fatty shrugged indifferently. He couldn't help but smile. He found that this girl was quite cute. It was just that she was too fierce in the arena battle, causing him to use the divine art of buttocks to suppress her. More importantly, she sent him a sound transmission and said very shameless and flirtatious words. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so brooding right now. After all, although Wan Yishui losing to Fatty in the beginning was embarrassing, it definitely didn't exist now. Fatty had even taken care of first seat Yuan, Yun Tian. What was there to be embarrassed about? Take your eyes off me. Perhaps sensing Fatty's gaze, Wan Yishui, who didn't want to lose his temper in public, maintained an unchanged expression and suddenly transmitted a message to Chen Hao. I say, Sister Shui, aren't you being too nosy? It seems that you have a deep prejudice against me. Why don't you find some time and let me talk to you? Scram. Fatty's words infuriated Wan Yishui so much that he almost exploded. Find some free time. Find some time. Let Lord Fatty play with you. You don't have to doubt it. You didn't hear me wrong. The number 1 pleasure in my life is to play with little girls like you. Rolling around in bed is quite interesting. When the time comes, I'll let you have a taste of Lord Fatty's 2 great chain divine techniques. Your love for Lord Fatty won't be in vain. The first style of Lord Fatty's chain divine technique, buttocks divine technique. When my buttocks press down, I'll sit on all the beauties in the world. The second style, golden spear does not fall. Fatty's words made Wan Yishui involuntarily recall the shameless words Fatty had said to her during the arena battle. Anger is harmful to the body. Calm down, calm down. Don't hold it in. Our cooperation has just begun. The principal said that you should cooperate with Fat Bro well. Shameless. I won't let you off. Wan Yishui was indeed holding it in. Her face was red and green, and her delicate body was trembling slightly. She was absolutely furious, but in front of the principal, she couldn't lose her temper. Furthermore, even if she did, would it be of any use? Wan Yishui suddenly used a sword of her mind to cut off the anger in her heart. At the same time, she blocked off her 6 senses. Out of sight, out of mind. If this continued, she was afraid that she would lose her composure. No matter how much she hated this damnable Fatty, she had to endure it. After all, this was the first time she had received an academy mission, and it was such an important one. To her, it was an unprecedented opportunity. No matter what, she had to do her best to complete it. To be able to cut it off so easily, your mental state and willpower are not bad? Looks like the medicine I used is not strong enough. Fatty thought in his heart, and did not continue to provoke her. Looking at Xiao Mantian and his partner who were sitting back to back, as if they had already entered a state of enlightenment, Chen Hao's eyes flashed with a trace of seriousness. Even though Chen Hao didn't want to admit it, He had to admit that Xiao Mantian and his partner did indeed make him feel threatened. What he was proud of was perhaps only their outer appearance. How could a genius who didn't even want to waste this little bit of time not be strong? Phew! Fatty turned his head and heaved a sigh of relief, blowing Wan Ishue's long hair. He seemed to be deep in thought, and slowly entered a state of cultivation. Perhaps it was because the teachers in charge of the two associations were best friends, or perhaps it was because of some unknown reason, but the Painting Association and the Ancient Martial Arts Association had decided to hold an exchange meeting on the same day and at the same place. The purpose of this exchange meeting was to welcome the new members of the association. Big brother, second brother, tell me the truth, how do you compare to that damnable Fatty? Third brother, where did your confidence go? You have to know that you are the head of the 4 great talents of the great planet, and you are an expert in both painting and calligraphy. In the younger generation, not to mention the great planet, even in the great world of Xiandi, how many people are better than you? Li Yuan merely created a unique style, and his painting skills are far from yours. Your painting is definitely much better than his. That's right. Third brother, there's one more thing. Don't forget that painting skills are only one aspect. What's more important is still fame. With the same skills, fame is the door that shakes people's hearts. Unknowingly, it will add a layer of halo. How can your fame be compared to his? Big brother, second brother, since you said so, I am relieved. In this exchange meeting, I must surpass him. Teacher Rulin will definitely like my painting. Contains my love for Teacher Rulin from the bottom of my heart, a love that will never change until death. Third brother, you are so infatuated. But second brother, I support you. In terms of ancient martial arts, you will see how your second brother slaps his face. Ha! Let's go, it's almost time. Murong Qianhua, Xin Yuanshan, and Tang, who had been waiting for this exchange meeting for a long time. Especially Tang, who had been holding back his anger. No matter what, he had to win the glory that belonged to him in the exchange meeting, and most importantly, win the favor of Teacher Rulin. Unfortunately, they did not know that Fatty was already outside the great planet, and was destined to be absent. Chapter 1297. We're almost there. Look, this area is in the chaotic space, right at the intersection of the passages of the 5 main stars. Usually, flying machines and cultivators above true immortal level pass by here frequently. Therefore, before we found out, many experts must have sent their disciples, trusted aides, and other cultivators from the Daluo Golden Wonderland into here. There's no doubt that this is a potential danger, so you have to be careful. After flying for 10 days, Qing Wanxiang finally arrived at the area where the secret realm was exposed. At the same time, he removed their guards. Xiao Mantian suddenly opened his eyes and said proudly, "They're just loose cultivators without any organization. The more the better. If we run into any of them, they'll only become my free labor. Don't let your guard down and act cautiously. Although these people are mostly a motley crew, there's no lack of experts. Especially now that the great era has arrived and the Emperor stars have appeared, it's hard to say if there's any soul of all things who has awakened their memories. We have to be careful. Dean Qing is really steady," Xiao Mantian said calmly with a smile. After saying that, he closed his eyes and stopped talking. Obviously, Qing Wanxiang's words had no effect on him. "Dean, what do you mean by the great era has arrived? The Emperor stars have appeared, and the soul of all things?" However, Chen Hao suddenly opened his eyes wide and asked curiously. He was even more shocked. Just from the literal meaning, Chen Hao could guess a thing or two. The soul of all things. Wasn't the little nurse Lu Hui the soul of all things who was the reincarnation of an immortal emperor? Chen Hao knew very well how powerful Lu Hui was. Chen Wanxiang glanced at the fatty, then told Chen Hao about the emperor stars that had recently shaken the entire cultivation world. To Chen Wanxiang's admiration, not only was Fatty not worried in the slightest after he understood the situation, his expression was instead filled with uncontrollable excitement. Without a doubt, It was a type of battle intent that was hidden in his bones, a battle intent to compete with the strong. Cheng Wanxiang had never seen a true spirit of all existences before, and he didn't know how monstrous it would be. However, Cheng Wanxiang was clear that under normal circumstances, spirits of all existences would hide themselves before they truly awakened. And the fatty who dared to compete with the spirit of all existences, could he be the reincarnation of an immortal emperor? Cheng Wanxiang could not be sure, and no one could be sure. So many people? A few minutes later, Chen Hao and the others saw figures standing proudly in the air or sitting cross-legged on the star fragments. Basically, they were in groups of 5, and the leaders were extremely powerful old men. Obviously, they were leaders of forces like Cheng Wanxiang. The other 4 were 2 men and 2 women from the Daluo Golden Wonderland. Every one of them had a very powerful aura. Among the nearly 10,000 people present, even the weakest one would be above average in a first-rate academy. What a powerful aura! Is he from the University of Dahua? How can he be so strong? The moment Cheng Wanxiang, Chen Hao, and the other 2 appeared, they attracted the attention of everyone present. The probing telepathic thoughts of the experts pressed down unscrupulously. Unfortunately, under Cheng Wanxiang's deliberate protection, nobody could see through the disguise that Xiao Mantian and his wife had put on in advance. They could only sense the powerful auras emanating from them. Hi, Dean Cheng, it's just as old man guessed. You came so late, where did you get the external aid from? His aura is quite strong. Don't say you didn't invite him. Old man only invited 2, and these 2 are disciples of our University of Dahua. The old guys gathered together as they spoke. The young men and women beside the old guys gathered around Chen Hao, Wan Yishui, and Xiao Mantian's wife. Wan Yishui, you can come? At this moment, among the several old men and dozens of male and female disciples who had gathered around, a male disciple looked at Wan Yishui in surprise. What's wrong with me coming? Wan Yishui said angrily, her face turning red when she saw the person who had spoken. Obviously, the other party's tone was full of contempt, which made Wan Yishui feel embarrassed. Because, in the past, she really couldn't compare to the other party. Senior Hao, you know her? Some time ago, I met her in a mission. The battle team she was in, they couldn't even withstand a single blow. They only had some poise, cough cough. Her strength is very ordinary. To think that she was chosen to come here, it's really strange. Wan Yishui was so angry that her face turned green and red, but she couldn't refute. Scram. But at this moment, a cold voice suddenly sounded out. Wan Yishui was slightly taken aback, but the fatty smiled heartlessly and looked at Xiao Mantian, who had disguised his aura and appearance. That sharp gaze was like a sharp sword that emitted a cold light, and it was terrifying. What did you say? The young man who had spoken just now frowned, and his face turned ugly. I said scram. Boom. A majestic and terrifying aura suddenly gushed out from Xiao Mantian's body, but it seemed to have condensed into a line and was directed towards the young man who had spoken. Just as the young man's face turned grim and worried, a figure who had also concealed his presence and appearance suddenly stepped out from behind him and stood in front of the young man. Brother, what kind of treatment did the University of Dahua give you? Why are you working so hard? We're just external aid, why are you so serious? Of course, I was forced by you to help this little beauty. Oh, I understand, it's not that the University of Dahua gave you good treatment, but you've taken a liking to this little beauty, right? Bosom friends. It's a pity that as external aid, I can't just stand by and watch you make a move, right? It's you? Xiao Mantian's brows furrowed. Even he didn't think that the other party would be able to talk so casually under his aura. More importantly, when he heard the other party's words, he instantly thought of someone. You know me? That shouldn't be. My concealment skills are definitely top-notch, and furthermore, I have the support of the Dean of the Northern Nether Academy. I understand you're trying to trick me, The person who had spoken suddenly exclaimed as he was laughing, and stared at Xiao Mantian without saying anything else. Everyone naturally knew that Xiao Mantian must have revealed the other party's true identity through voice transmission. Don't talk nonsense with me, since I'm the external aide of the University of Dawa. Whoever dares to touch them will be touching me. Including you. Xiao Mantian said to the young man in front of him as he pointed at Wan Yishui, Chen Hao, and his Dao companion Feng Hanwei, who was standing some distance away from him. It can't be, right? Brother, you're really domineering. Since you know who I am, do you really think that you're stronger than me? I'm not a coward. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.